roll call though on this particular part, so everyone knows who's here. Greg?
Greg Gordon, present.
Lonlot present at the anchor location. Jason, are you here?
Jason Thielen, present.
Okay. Do we have any other city council with us on Zoom? Okay, we'll wait for the others, or expect the others sometime soon here. Looks like Chief William is here with us as well. Looks like, how do we look, see things? Staff, Austin Roy is here with us. Bonnie Cooper's here. Shane Sorensen is here. We have our attorney here. Bosserman?
Yep.
Okay. And that looks like it, I guess. I can. Okay. So again, we'll be covering the general plan. We excuse Mayor Stout. He is not with us this evening and has asked me to step in as Mayor Pro Tem. So, Austin, do you want to begin with this process?
Yes. Okay. Let's see if I can just get these screens. There we go. So, yes. So tonight we're going to be talking about the transportation element. The transportation element, let me actually probably share this on the screen as we go through it. 1 second. Okay, here we go. It's coming up. Okay, so the transportation element, if you all recall, we did amend this and adopt this actually some time ago. So in the, let's see here in the packet, we should have a clean copy, maybe not. Oh, here it is. So this is the clean copy. This is the currently adopted transportation and traffic circulation element of the general plan. The transportation element consists of a goal and then policies for that goal. So we have 6 policies that apply to that particular goal of our general plan. The newest addition to that was item 6 was what we amended and added to the language. So again, this is currently adopted. It is our current transportation. It is the current transportation element of our general plan. Even though we're still working on the rest of our general plan, this element is adopted right now. And so, you know, again, as we've done as we've mentioned in previous meetings, we've sat down with all the city council members to get their feedback on each. We're going through the general plan section by section to get their feedback and thoughts on, you know, what we can add and improve and amend here. So the comments, you know, we have them in order that I met with the council members. And so on this particular section, we had comments from Jason Thielen, Jessica Smewen, and Carla Merrill. So each one of them had different comments on different sections of this element. And so, I mean, overall, I guess it's probably just a good idea to go over what our general plan is. So, I mean, the transportation element is, so I'll just read the goal here. So create and maintain a multimodal transportation system that is pedestrian friendly, safe, and efficient. And then the policies in order go from 1.1, promote safe and efficient traffic circulation by following the street master plan. 2, connect neighborhoods and open space of the city with appropriate trails, sidewalks, and bike lanes that support alternate forms of local transportation and recreation. 3, work with adjacent communities and other agencies to acquire financial aid for transportation improvements. 4, emphasize the maintenance of roads to ensure high-quality road system. 5, promote the use of roundabouts or other traffic flow options to prevent the need for stoplights, therefore maintaining the historic small-town rural atmosphere. And then item 6, I'm not sure if what we see here in green is the most up-to-date language. Let me just scroll down here and read what the adopted one says. Limit intermunicipal and unincorporated county street connections to existing planned connections only. Ensure that street connections to other municipalities, unincorporated county, or other areas outside the city boundaries are compatible with the goals and policies of the general plan. Any additional street connection to such areas would require city council approval and appropriate amendments to the general plan, street master plan, and applicable city ordinances. So,
So that on the green one is not the same.
that's not accurate. Okay, yeah. So I apologize. We probably just should have updated that green section there, but anyways, so this is actually, we should probably, well, we have our comments on this section, that's why.
Yeah.
So, that's for transportation element as it stands. As we discussed, as we were going through this, I met with Councilman Thielen, and he had some comments about adding a policy about active transportation, an active transportation plan. Designated, which would include designated planned routes around town for bikers and runners. So, that was a concern, a theme that I noticed that not just Councilman Thielen, but some of the others that I met with also raised it. This was a theme among everyone that I met with, that, they felt biking and running and other modes of transportation other than a car were good, or things that we need to incorporate into our transportation master plan, that we should be planning for those types of transportation methods in the future.
Austin, do you see Carla's in the waiting room, it looks like?
Yeah, I see that. I'm going to admit her right now, actually.
So Austin, can we go ahead and talk a little about that before you move on to anything else? Specifically, each comment then.
Yes.
I'd like to hear from Jason. I'd like to hear from Jason as it pertains to that, to his comment. Is it not covered enough in 1.2? So would you elaborate on that, Jason, on what you're thinking? You're muted.
An actual transportation plan, I was thinking the same thing, Lon, is that it does fit in there, but active transportation plan actually goes a little bit further and creates a plan to including infrastructure. How do we make it safe, for example, safer riding out of the city, into Highland on those roads. But you're right, it could play a part definitely in 1.2 there. Well.
Such as a bike lane or something, is that?
Yeah, you're actually thinking about biking as a form of transportation. Like a lot of times here, even though this says local transportation and recreation, a lot of times we think of our trails as recreation more than maybe transportation, but you might be right on that. I'm just looking at that. I mean, if you look up the active transportation plan, it is a statewide program that's very specific, of ideas. And I don't know, Carla might actually know a little more about this than I do even.
So I think it's a great concept there to consider. When you talk about runners, for example, sidewalks aren't always as conducive. right? And, you know, and maybe it's just sort of, you know, looking at a map as well. Is it easy to find how someone could walk, run, or bike between parks and trails in and out of the city? Or a plan to achieve that. And I don't know if that comes up in the open space section, probably does in some form, but.
If it does in the open space though, to Jason's point, we have open space is more for recreational than it is for regular transportation to and from town.
Mhm.
Carla, welcome, Carla.
Thank you.
Jason, were you done with what you were thinking there, or do you want to talk some more, or do we want to just keep discussing?
That's all for that one. I would like maybe Carla's idea on that, but I have one other that I'd like to throw out to the council to potentially add to this. Could I do that, Mayor?
Yes,
Ron?
yes, you can.
All right, so we added 1.6 here, largely after the general plan was done, because we didn't think about it, but the issue came up with neighboring communities and wanted to make sure we could control access. I would like to add an additional policy to like a 1.7 to promote open streets, accessible to all cities, all citizens, by avoiding private streets and gated communities. I think that this is, I think, the right place to put that if we were to add that point and bullet to our master plan.
Okay, can you say that one more time then? I was writing
Okay.
that down. Promote
Promote open streets accessible to all citizens by avoiding private streets and gated communities.
And Bonnie, if you need to have him repeat that one more time, you got it? Okay.
And that's all from Elon.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about that in just a minute. Let's go back to 1.2 as it pertains to the note that the comment Jason made. Carla, do you have any comments on whether we need to expand any more on the designated and planned routes around town for bikers and runners?
No, that's part of the active transportation plan that we're talking about, right?
Correct. Where do we, when we talk about the active transportation plan, then this just points to those things in an active transportation plan. Where do we have our active transportation plan?
I know I did not see that in our, I thought it would be more laid out, but I didn't see anything specifically. It just kind of refers to it, but I feel like we don't actually have one.
Okay, Austin, do you want to address that?
Yeah, let me go ahead and address that. So an active transportation plan typically would be a separate document from the general plan. It would be a supplementary document. And Carla's correct. We don't actually have an active transportation plan right now. So there are neighboring communities that do this. You know, some of the more, if you've gone to some other neighboring municipalities, and especially in Salt Lake County, or you notice the bike lanes and all of that stuff, that was all thought out through an active transportation plan. So
is that something that we can have MAG help us on? I mean,
they'd probably, yeah, they would be a good resource for that.
I do know that they have offered in the past to participate in that with one of their transportation planners. And I listen to them when I go to the MAG meetings. They refer to those plans regularly.
Yeah, you're right. MAG is a great resource, and I know there's some other nonprofits and other types of organizations out there that would be a good resource for something like that.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Carla.
Lon, so when I was speaking with you Austin a while back about an active transportation plan. I was kind of envisioning going down Main Street, Westfield Road. I feel like those are the main areas where we have room in order to implement an active transportation plan. From what I've seen in other neighborhoods, like, like Highland, they have an active transportation plan. And, and it's going in through their main arterial roads, it looks like.
Right. I mean, I think that's right. If we could put in those two directions there, right, then you'd connect out to some of the bigger trails and highways out there. I mean, it might be fairly easy for us, with at least those a couple main arteries, and then maybe some additional other ones connecting into bigger sections of the city.
And I feel like what I would see if we actually enacted an active transportation plan and implemented it throughout the city, you would probably see hopefully a great byproduct of it would be decrease in speed, because it does have a tendency to narrow the road. Not visually, it narrows it. Not that they have any less room to really drive, but if you paint those lines in, it just, I think people, it's just like having those islands and whatnot. Instead of having like a physical barrier, they're just painted lines. But I feel like that might help with some of the speeding issues they're seeing around the city.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead,
when
Shane.
it's appropriate. So we already have those lines painted. They're not painted with bike symbols, but we paint fog lines. For example, 200 north from Main Street to Westfield Road, and then Westfield Road. The pavement width is 36 feet. So we stripe white lines on the sides. We call them fog lines. And the reason we do that is try to narrow up those traffic lanes to reduce speed. That's one of the main reasons we do it. And we've done that for years. Having only 36 feet of pavement makes it a little bit tough in my mind, and Mag might have a different take on this and have more knowledge than I do, to have a dedicated bike lane where parking is not allowed. And so that's something that, as you consider this, that would need to be considered. So Westfield Road, Canyon Crest from the roundabout to the schools, and then over to Sycamore and up to Westfield, Ridge Drive, Healy Boulevard, Ridge Drive and Healy Boulevard. Those streets all have 36 feet of pavement. We only have one class of streets that are wider than that, and that's really Main Street up to 200 North, Canyon Crest Road from the city limits to the roundabout, and part of Alpine Boulevard. So our pavement width is limited the way our city just kind of was built. So that definitely should be part of the discussion. A dedicated versus a non-dedicated. We already have white line striped. Does it need to be done different? Do you paint bike symbols? If you do that, can someone park there? Those questions.
It's a good point, because Westfield Road, I see a lot of cyclists along there. But it has been residential, and it's become more so now. And so that, that's going to be a factor, right, with some of those homes that face that.
And normally I don't see a lot of parking in my travels on the sides of Westfield Road, but we don't say you can't either. And so it feels like there's a bike lane there, but it's not been dedicated for that purpose. But there are a lot of people that ride out that way, it seems like. Same with Main Street.
Okay, so our first step to starting this active transportation plan is Austin, right? Then is that how it would go?
I think Austin could have a discussion with the staff down at MAG and just say, hey, our council's looking at considering this. I'm sure they'd be willing to come to one of these work sessions and kind of talk through some of these things and ideas, or just a meeting outside of city council. You know, some staff and a couple of council members or something.
Okay, so Austin, the points that has been made then are the ones that we want to obviously start with in the discussion with MAG. And I say we get going on it and get that in. Do we need to, in this policy though, refer to, obviously we can't right now, but as part of the thing, refer to a master active transportation plan in our general plan? Do we do that in this document?
My feeling is if the active transportation plan would hold up the finalization of this document, that just finalize the general plan and then let that be a supplement. You know, if it could happen on a time frame that is within where the council would want to be on adoption of this plan, then fine, let it be part of it.
Okay, so Jason and Carla, are you good with the verbiage that we have currently? We'll start with Jason currently then on 1.2 with regards to active transportation plan.
For me, I don't think that goes far enough with the active transportation plan. It's almost like but yeah, to be honest with you, Ron, I thought it would go further with what, but you might be right. I'm all over. I just want to make sure that we discuss it.
How about if you add like in accordance with our active transportation plan, and then it would refer to the sub document,
which would be more detailed with areas, size, lanes, whatever it was we're talking about. Is that?
If the preparation and adoption of the two were going to parallel each other and happen at the same time, that would make sense. If the general plan, as we have it before us, and the amendments we'll make to it as we work through it, is going to be adopted before an active transportation plan, you could put some language in here that's something to the effect it's recommended that the city pursue the creation of an active transportation plan to take this that next step further. And then if that happens and everybody's on board, then that could be a supplement to the plan. But however you'd like to handle that, we can pursue it either way.
I wonder if we could add it as a separate bullet and just say something like create and support an active transportation plan, right? So it doesn't depend on it being existing. It's somewhat future looking. And
would that fit what you're talking?
My language is just in case the council decides, we're not going to go down that route when you get into it.
Would that help you feel better, Jason, on extending and making it more detailed, getting that pointing to a document that we will create?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Carla, are you good with that one too?
Yeah, I like Greg's idea of adding a separate bullet point.
A separate bullet point.
Yes, that would say create and enact an active transportation plan. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Did we lose other people? We might have lost.
It seems
Austin.
like it. Something dropped.
Well,
I don't have City Hall anymore.
Shane. I don't either. I think they just knocked us off. So it looks like out on YouTube.
So did you get on right away when you tried to get on? Mine kept saying, put me in a waiting room forever.
Yeah, I think Austin didn't see you there and someone had to remind you that you were waiting in there. And then he went out and got you, so. Yeah, right now we're live, but everyone in the city office is knocked off.
That's not good. They can't really vote on anything with just the two of them. They don't have a
Exactly.
They don't have a quorum.
But what's interesting is we're on the YouTube, outside one right now. They're not. So it's interesting. They set it up there. I guess Austin's on this one.
Austin?
Doesn't sound like it. His name's there though.
Yeah. Austin, can you hear us? Oh, something just happened.
I wonder if we should exit out and come
Yeah,
back
do you
in.
think it's worth it to exit out and jump back in, and we'll just have Austin restart the live recording on YouTube if it bumps it?
Okay, let's do it.
All right. All right, can anyone hear me?
I can hear you, but I still don't see City Hall.
Yeah, it's weird they let us back in. Shane sent out a text that says working on getting that booted back up, but obviously someone.
Did you go on? You just went on mute.
Yeah, I just. Curious if Brian, William, and or Reed Thompson are on.
I'm here.
Okay, we got.
I've spent the day on the Capitol Hill, so I'm done for today. I like this Zoom meeting, so it works for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm here. We got booted off just like you guys did.
Okay,
Yeah.
it looks like, okay, I see City Hall now, so.
And I see Chief Thompson's taking himself off mute.
I'm here.
Okay.
You don't want to see my face tonight. In cancer treatment going on, and I look like Deadpool. So
Wait, you do? For yourself?
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, it's good to know. Anything we can do to help, let us know.
No, I'm good. It's just one of those things.
Wow. One of those things you never know what people are going, you know, you're the chief and you're invincible, and all of a sudden you have that happen. That's
It's just some skin cancer. It's not the end of the world. So.
okay.
That might be it.
Okay, can you hear us out there? Okay,
We were
we-
muted in the room.
we
apparently.
think we're back now. Thanks for hanging in there. Things went really weird in here. So, so Jason, what is the last thing you remember when we left off?
Carla was mentioning how she felt that there should be an extra bulleted item for that. And I'm fine with that as well.
Okay, all right. So we went a little ways further when you guys weren't with us. So here's where we'll start again. We'll start with Austin going over the next comment concerning the gateway, definition of gateway. Austin, start all over again on that.
All right, so Jason had some comments about implementing some language about a gateway and talking about our 3 entrances into our city, which is currently referenced in our general plan that's currently adopted. So as we were drafting item 1.6, which you'll see on the screen there, we ran this language by the attorneys. And as we started discussing this, the term gateway became a problematic term, and it has many different interpretations. And so we decided to stray away from using that term and just to draft some language that would incorporate that same concept without using that term. And so that's how we essentially came up with item 1.6, which is found here in the transportation element that's currently adopted.
Okay, so council, I was just wanting to go through each of the concerns or each of the comments that was made to Austin as we were working through this. So Jason, are you, does that directly answer your concern on gateway?
It does, yes.
Okay. All right, Austin, we have another one. Carla made some comments and.
Yes, so we had some comments from Carla. She talked about connector roads being limited to only those shown on the current city's transportation master plan. And also she had some comments about the promoting an active transportation plan. So
Okay.
The first comment was addressed in 1.6, I believe, and again, we've already talked about the active transportation plans. We're working on that.
Okay, so does everyone feel their comments and concerns have been addressed and the current policy
Yeah,
addresses that?
yeah, I think so. I had one more comment at the end. Just it was kind of, there's that list of street improvement plans. On the MAG site, they have some traffic information. I noticed on there, it was like from a 10-year period, 07 to 17, it kind of has traffic data on our 3 gateways, if you will. And Alpine, Highway and Canyon Crest over that time increased in traffic like 10-12% is what it looked like. But Westfield Road over that time period increased, and this was 2017, by over 160%.
Wow.
And so, you know, that if that's a factor, I don't know how we adjust or account for that. I mean, it's not like we can widen the road tremendously, but you know, it's something to be, other than maybe perhaps alternate routes that allow people other pathways. So.
Okay, anything from you, Carla, on any other points on the policies?
No.
Jason?
Nope.
Okay. Greg?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so let's address then the two remaining, or two additions then, 1.7 as proposed by Jason. Let's move into that part of the discussion then. Jason, do we want to you want to start again on that? I don't know if Carla was here when you made that comment.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to add, in the same way 1.6 came about based on things we didn't think about when we first wrote this out, and we added it to it since. Wanted to add a 1.7 that said promote open streets accessible to all citizens by avoiding private streets and gated communities. And I actually think that this is kind of been policy for quite a while. And I don't know if it was on our previous one, but we've had some individuals come in before asking for gated communities. I remember when Janica Brewer was there, and they were shut down very quickly, saying that's not something we do in our city. I don't know if our ordinance says that as well, but it'd be nice if it was also in this goal policies general plan.
I like it.
I do have one, maybe a possible concern about private streets. If we are going to avoid them, can we, I don't know if that's can be avoided if there are certain ones that we do have private streets on.
That's a good point. Jason, what was the term? Gated communities and was it private streets? Do you mean closed streets essentially?
That's a good question. I was meaning private streets because we do have streets that are private, but sometimes we call those private driveways almost is how we refer to them in the city. I'm talking, an example would be up Fort Canyon, how we don't want, we have a gate there. We want to make sure we understand that these are not private streets. And we've had a couple other individuals come in and ask for private. And it's just something I think in a general plan that we should put in there to possibly.
Okay. Yeah, I do agree with that. The direction we're going with that for sure on the gated community aspect. The private lane, I guess, would be okay, right? I mean, we're talking a private lane.
Tell me what private street you're thinking about.
Well, I'm thinking specifically Eagle Point or Summit Point, the one that has 4 lots on it right now currently. That's Blue Bison had recommended or wanted to amend their plat. That is that is a private street, not ours. It's not a public street. And maybe that's the defining thing. But
Right.
it
I
still
think,
shouldn't be a gated street either.
right. But I think that's kind of a one-off, right? They got an exception for that. But I mean, I think what Jason's trying to do is going forward. That's already approved.
Right.
So I'm assuming we can't go back to them and go, hey, you can't do that. In my mind, it's just, aren't things pretty much grandfathered in and it's going forward? So if, somebody wants to take a public road and privatize it, I think that's the stance that Jason wants to take. Is that correct?
Yeah, and with the Blue Bison area, and Shane or Austin, correct me, but I don't believe we classified that as a private street. I think we classified that as a private driveway.
That's
I don't-
correct.
So that's different. I don't think we've ever done a private street in this.
Okay.
So there is one thing to consider here. We have two overlay zones in the city, the assisted living and the senior housing overlays. Those particular overlays do allow private streets for those developments. And so if something is written, those would either need to be changed or considered in how that is written.
Because those are private streets
They
today.
are
Maintained by them
maintained by them and
and is a private street.
snow plowing, everything. Mhm.
So can we not put in language, with the exception of the existing neighborhoods in the senior citizen overlay areas? I mean, is that
Yeah,
not a possibility?
that's exactly where I was going with that, Carla, is something like that to qualify that we have certain zones or certain overlays that allow private streets. And so unless we're going to change those, they would be able to continue. And if we had new projects proposed that were approved, that they could have their private streets.
Within those overlays.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sure Hiram and Craig could help come up with something to sort all that out.
Okay, well, I'm good with then moving that to that point and getting 1.7, promote open streets accessible to all citizens by avoiding private streets and gated communities, and then let the attorneys work on the verbiage. Everyone else okay with that? Greg, are you good
Yes,
with that?
yeah.
Carly, you good with that?
Yes.
And Jason, obviously you're good with that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to then 1.8, then a proposal for 1.8. Create
Create and promote an active
transportation plan.
transportation plan.
Okay,
And I'd suggest maybe Austin can take that and work that over, maybe with city attorneys again and flesh out the language, right? I don't know if it should say, connect to other major, alternate transportation routes or things of that nature.
Just a thought on that, maybe it makes sense to have a bullet point 1.21 since it's very closely related to 1.2,
okay,
so that the document kind of flows.
yeah. I agree with that as well. Okay, so Austin, that's your assignment now, I guess, then to move that into visiting with Hiram on that. Any other discussion on that? Jason,
Nope.
Carla?
No.
Okay. And Greg, you good then to go?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Anything other that we want to see put into the document?
Does it need, yeah, I guess in 1.1 it does reference the street master plan, right? That's our actual map of planned and existing streets. Correct, so that gives us sort of the latitude of specifying the plan.
Correct.
One thing I remember over the past few years, Carla talking about, when we talk about safety, 1.1 promotes safe and efficient traffic circulation, but around the schools, lights or different things that would promote safe travel through those areas. Do we want to mention anything about safety in those areas?
Well, I think that's a good idea. I mean, whether or not that needs to go in the general plan, but maybe that could be a sub point, right? Because whether it's some of the crosswalks and some of the school zones, I think it's a challenge sometimes, and we could perhaps use, pedestrian lights or, lower speed limits perhaps around parks or schools.
Any thoughts, Carla? I know you've brought it up in the past about safe travel through those areas.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've had the conversation about the schools and the congestion that happens at the school start times and school end times. And I just feel like we're going around in circles, and there still hasn't been a viable solution that has worked, that just other than just completely avoid that area of town. And during those times, that's what I've kind of adjusted to doing. Other than that, is that what you're talking about, or am I?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah. So maybe in our general plan, avoid all school areas.
You know, I mean, you know what I mean, though. We've had this
just
conversation over and over
Yeah,
again.
I know.
And, we even had Horrocks Engineering, take a look at it and come up with suggestions. And I know, there's certain things that they've suggested, but it's still a mess, honestly. But
Yeah.
with that being, I mean, likely it's only twice a day as opposed to being like that the entire time.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I had that last comment on there with the Dry Creek Bridge, because that's one of the few options to kind of alleviate some of that roundabout traffic early in the day, or at school times, I think, between Mountainville and Timberline and Westville.
So on Canyon, or on Canyon
off of
Crest, or
off of Alpine, yeah.
The Ranch Drive connection.
Ranch Drive connection.
That's right.
Okay.
And from an engineering standpoint, traffic circulation, I think that is absolutely key to have that connection.
Yeah.
So, but would be part of a street master plan aspect of that.
And it's in there, right?
Been on there
Yeah.
for a long time.
So okay. Well, I just wanted to throw that one up there because I know we have discussed it many a time. We talk about promote safe and efficient traffic circulation.
I mean,
but we've got to.
I mean, I think the policy is good, right? I think it's then, how it's implemented. I mean, I'm not sure if we need to put, crosswalks in the general plan, but it's, maybe it's a layer down.
Well, should it also say, though, somewhere in here, we talk about promote safe and efficient traffic circulation, traffic and pedestrian. We don't talk anything about pedestrians in this. from what I can see.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, we talk about sidewalks in 1-2, but that's kind of the end of
I
it.
know this is, again, transportation and traffic. I don't know if it's the right place for that, but certainly if we're trying to keep traffic flow going, we do have to respect people in crosswalks and that as we're trying to keep traffic flow going. Just a thought. Do we want to address that anymore?
I mean, to your point, it seems like a sub-point to 1.1 around pedestrian pathways may be helpful. If it's, for major arteries or around parks and schools or.
So that would be my input then today, then Austin, is maybe as you're talking with Hiram, see if there's any kind of verbiage that would be sufficient to address pedestrian safety in this, if it's necessary in this document.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, anything else from the council? Okay, do we have Jessica with us yet? Has she come in?
Jessica had some major surgery. I'm not sure if she'll be joining us.
Oh, okay, sorry. Well, then let's just excuse her along with the mayor then. Okay, so Austin, anything more do you want to address on this? We've got just a few more minutes before we'll start our other meeting, other portion of the meeting.
I think what we've discussed tonight are some good starting points. So we got a couple additional policies that we can add or sub paragraphs to those existing policies. So we'll get to work with Hiram and Craig and see if we can draft some language and come back with something for the next work session and kind of go from there.
Okay, sounds good. Let's go over the format then for the rest of the meeting here. We will have a roll call. Again, we did start the other meeting with a roll call. And Carla needed to be added to that. I'm sure you put her in there, Bonnie. But let's begin, starting with those on offsite in the Zoom meeting.
Jason Thielen, present.
Carla?
Carla Merrill, present.
Okay.
Greg Gordon, present.
And Lon Lott, present. I will be acting as Mayor Pro Tem this evening. We excuse Mayor Stout and we'll excuse Jessica Smuin also. If either of those happen to pop in, we'll welcome them, but at this point they're excused. We will begin this meeting with a word of prayer offered by Greg Gordon.
Our dear Father in heaven, we bow our heads before thee to thank thee for our many blessings of this life and our opportunities to serve thee and learn and grow. We thank thee for this great city and all who contribute to it and all of the employees and personnel that support and the wonderful people and families that reside in it. We ask for thy spirit and guidance and blessing as we meet to discuss and deliberate, that we can be wise and serve the city well now and in the future and its needs and what would be best for its future. And we so thank thee and ask a blessing on all those who are in need, including any in our city who are sick or afflicted or recovering. We so pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we will have a pledge of allegiance. I will lead us in that. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we also welcome those city staff here at the anchor location, City Hall. With us, Austin Roy, city planner, Bonnie Cooper, recorder, and Shane Sorensen, our administrator. Welcome those also in the audience who are with us today. I can't see who's with us on YouTube, but I think Chief William is still with us, and Chief Thompson, I'm assuming, is with us. I can't see that portion. But welcome to you. And Hiram as our city attorney. Are you still with us, Hiram?
Yep. Still
Okay,
here.
sorry. Okay, I see you now. Okay. We will move on now to the consent calendar. Prior to, well, Shane, do you need to make any comments on the consent calendar?
Just, I sent an email out today on the Hillside Side Circle Waterline project. We didn't have everything taken care of as far as checking references when the packet went out on Friday. So you should have received that today with the award recommendation for PNL construction. That amount, if you don't have that in front of you, is
Austin had it right there.
440.
Did we lose them again?
I think I lost all sound.
I lost all sound as well.
Me too.
We have an HDMI cable here, right? That situation at Hideaway, part 3, and the Zoom didn't work.
Yeah, and it totally causes
The huge deal.
annexation thing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Big, huge screen.
And it doesn't have a spot.
Spot to plug it in. Is that more it is?
Is this it though?
Well,
Or does this go to the whole system?
There's a box down here. I wonder if it is. Maybe this does work.
You want to feed it up through me, to me?
Yeah. No, you're right. We're back in Alpine. I love this. It's nice. I love the youth, but it's nice too. What's that?
Different control? Oh, something just happened.
Have this done this one.
Unplug it from the wall.
No, that doesn't make sense. Right.
Well,
Let's
this
say
one
plug,
would go into somewhere.
plug this.
That, the lower one,
Below.
pull it out.
Let's pull that out.
And plug it into
Put it
here.
right there and see if that works.
Um, Okay, so Lorraine says she can see and hear us.
oh, really?
So, okay, well, so,
Do that. That might be the best.
well, whatever she's seeing us. So I don't know what she's seeing us with, but
One of the two.
Yeah, I can
here we are. Okay,
So I think we'll just
okay,
offset
well,
this a
we
little
will
like that.
continue this meeting now. We've had some technical difficulties in the chamber, and so we've gone into a conference room where we feel like we are hooked up to another source, and we will continue this meeting. So we are on the consent calendar. We just was informed about the addition to the Hillside Circle water line addition. And that is item E on the consent calendar. Can you hear us, Jason and Carla?
I can, yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, we can hear you now too. So anything else, Shane, on the consent calendar?
The only thing, the 800 South project is heavily funded by Class C road funds. The 600 North project that we did last year, the contractor did not complete it on time. The final payment went into this current budget year. And so it was like, mid-August. So we're just a little bit, I sent an email out with this. We're just a little bit short, like 36,000 for being able to make this project happen. But that's just what's budgeted. We have plenty of funds available. But depending on where things end up at the end of the year, we may need to make a little adjustment to cover that. So I'm comfortable moving forward where we're at right now.
Okay. Okay, does the council have any questions on items on the consent calendar?
Can I just make a modification in the minutes here?
Yes, go ahead, Jason.
On page 4, Marla, line 5, if you could modify that with where it says Jason Thielen. Jason Thielen's concern with goal 1 being based on a per capita basis, with Alpine's larger lots might end in the result of forced increased city density.
Okay, you got that. Okay. I also made some corrections to some spellings and a couple minor clarifications on page 1. Just a few words that were just different. Council member, Lawn Lot City Council members said, I asked if, so just some things to make it understandable. Carla, anything from you?
No.
Okay. I do have one. If you remember previously, I recused myself on the Watkin Lanes project, water line project. So I would have to, even though none of that partial payment has to do with me, I would still probably want to recuse myself from voting on item D on the consent calendar where I can recuse myself before. But other than that, I'm good with everything else on the consent calendar. So I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the modifications that Jason and Juan mentioned to the meeting minutes.
I'll second.
that.
Okay, we have Greg has made a motion to approve the consent calendar, and Carla has made a second on that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Do we have any public comment of any item that is not on the agenda? So Austin, have you got anything that has been sent in that we'd like to read? Do either of you have anything that is not on the agenda? Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll wait for Austin to look for any comments that might be out there. Shane, are we having the introductions
Yes, they should be.
coming?
They should be.
Here
No,
or
they're not
online?
on.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see, we have.
The only one we got by email.
Ron Robinson.
I believe the individual's here.
He's here, so.
Okay. Okay, that will come in a bit. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to reports and presentations now, and have introduction of a few new employees that we have. Shane, are you going to take that?
Yeah. Let's see.
Were they able to get on?
Heidi and Tommy, are they?
I wonder if they
Showing up
are
on there.
getting stuck. I think they're stuck. Let me try logging on here because they might, you know how I had to admit people.
Mhm.
I had a setting, so let me try logging in on my phone to see if I can admit them.
Okay. We could go ahead with this next item and cut in for a minute,
Adoption.
just to keep the meeting
Okay.
going, yeah.
Okay, well, let's go into action item A, ordinance number 2021-5, adoption of the water conservation plan. This was before us last time, and the motion was to return with it this week with a few changes to that. Shane, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, just so we tried to take good notes on the comments from the last meeting, and as I stated before, Jed had prepared this plan, so some of those items I didn't have the answers right off, but got back in touch with him. So the changes that were made, the goals for per capita water use were reduced to 15%. By 2030 and then 20% by 2040, 25 by 2065. I think that's half of what was proposed before. These are goals, not mandates. There's no penalty specified for not reaching the goals. The idea is just to get everyone's minds on water conservation and strive for that. Goals 5 and 10 were essentially saying the same thing, so they were condensed into goal 5. There was a typo on one of the charts that was fixed. The industrial connections, clarification on that it is only schools and churches. Some of these buildings have more than 1 meter, so it bumps that number up and makes it look like there could be more facilities than what it seems like we have. And essentially, those were the changes that came out of that last meeting.
And Shane, in the hillside circle, that was having leaking, right? That could be
Yes.
part of our 15% potentially that we catch right there.
Yeah, it could have some constant leaking. It's a hard one to determine because it's unmetered. But all these fixes we make in our system should tighten it up. But in that particular case, the ground is very a clay type soil, and it's a ductile iron pipe, and they're just the wrong conditions. The soil will actually eat through the pipe over time. Sometimes it can be 30 years, and sometimes it can be more than that or less. But so it makes the pipe weak, and then you get a little bump in pressure in the system, and the pipe breaks. So we've had multiple failures up there that we've had to repair. Street needs to be overlaid. In an effort not to throw good money after bad, we put off the overlay until we could fix the water, replace the water line. So those things are looked favorably on, trying to tighten up the system and know where all that water is going.
So Mayor, I had a question for Shane.
Yes, go ahead, Carla.
So I was looking at our secondary water supply and use table, figure number 5, and it looks like our reliable supply is almost double what we're currently using. And so I had a question regarding the Healy well that's been having problems the last couple of years. Is it providing over half of the water, half of our secondary water supply? Or
So
what
that-
percentage is the Healy well providing?
So first to address the chart. So the chart at the bottom of page 6, which is figure 4, that is culinary water.
Right. So I was thinking figure 5, the secondary water supply.
Okay, in figure 5, whoa. I wonder if that chart got fouled up because it wasn't that way. They were very close.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, it didn't make sense to me.
I have the form one right here. Yeah, something's messed up that chart because those were very close, because someone asked the same question, and if I had looked at that, I don't know if you can see this, but this is the chart.
No, I can't see it
Really?
at all.
Very low tech, but there's the chart from last time. Those bars on that graph are much closer to the same height. And that's more the situation we have. We're gonna have to figure out what happened with this update. Yeah, because in the chart from the one in the last packet, if you look in 2019, the bars are pretty close together. In 2030, the reliable supply goes up. The reason for that is because of the introduction of the CUP water, which is not currently available. So we apologize for that one. We'll get that fixed.
And do we have a timeline for when CUP will actually be piped into Alpine?
Yeah, so the pump station and the line and everything are getting close to being tested. The problem is our filters aren't in yet, and they really need to be. We don't want to introduce potential rocks and dirty water into our system. So it probably won't be tested fully until later this year, even though the pump station in Highland will be complete. So the water would be fully available in 2022, that irrigation season.
So we expect it to be kind of completed this fall.
Yeah, the system really that's being built will be complete probably, I'd say April, other than being fully tested. So, yeah.
Okay, Carla, any more questions you have on this?
No, that was the main one. I didn't understand that graph.
Yeah, good catch on that one.
Okay, Jason, is the goal issue addressed as you was concerned last time?
Yep. I'm ready to approve it if someone wants to make a motion.
Shane, can you remind me what the 2030 goal was in our first
The first one.
version?
25, I think, or let's see. Yeah, 2020. Yeah, you're 20,
Austin.
2030.
Yes.
Heidi's on, so she's
Yeah.
waiting.
Is she on?
Yeah,
That's
she's
waiting to
trying.
be admitted, or?
Yeah,
Previously read 20% in 10 years, then 27% by 2040, then 32% by 2065.
Okay. Anything, Greg, do you have?
Perfect, yes.
Okay. All right.
Wait, actually, I did have one more question. I forgot. I'm sorry. Going further down onto table 5 with the water structure rates. If you're over their usage rate and you're charging them per 1,000 gallons and you've got a monetary amount like $2 to $4, is it increasing per every 1,000, or how do you determine when it says it's between 2 to 4? Is it going to be a sliding scale, or how is that working?
Carla, can you tell me which page you're on?
Page 10.
Okay.
Page 10, table 5, just the structure rate, where you've got,
Okay.
the base, what the base rate is, what the usage is per unit, and then what the overage rate will be per 1,000 gallons.
So this is just the currently adopted rate structure as it stands today. So that's what currently people are paying. The base rate of $17, they get 8,000 gallons for that, and then the overage rate. There's like 3 steps. I can send you the consolidated fee schedule.
No, it's okay. I just didn't know how that was determined. Okay.
Yeah,
And then
it'll say like from 8 to 10,000 gallons, it would be $2 per thousand, from 10 to 15 or something like that. There's like 3 different steps in there.
Okay.
And I think we should just spell our rate structure out as it stands instead of having this range. We'll just put the detail in there if that's helpful.
That would be good.
Yeah, we might as well just have our actual rate structure.
Yeah. So my question is, do we need to correct that chart before we pass this, or?
It's an adopted structure. I think you could just direct us to put that in there and we can make that correction.
It'll be the same. It'll just be more detailed.
Yeah.
And the
chart.
number, the amounts don't change.
Yeah.
It just is the visual.
More detail.
I mean the chart with the error as well.
Oh,
No, the numbers wouldn't be the same.
yeah, except for the chart that you pointed out on this particular part of the packet that we've been given. So you can, I'll accept a motion with the change if someone wants to do that.
Okay, let's see, what was it? Water concert. Okay, so I move to accept the water management and conservation plan as outlined, except for the figure 5 on page 7 be swapped out to more accurately depict the actual water supply and use. And other than that, as outlined.
Okay. Motion by Carla Merrill. Have a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Greg Gordon. Any discussion to the motion? Okay, we'll go to a vote. Jason?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And Lon, yes. Okay. Let's move on to the, well, let's see, do we want to?
So we do have, we have Heidi on here, and is someone able to text Tommy to see if he's trying to get on or not? I don't know.
Okay.
But Heidi's here, so.
Hey, Heidi. Okay, so Heidi Jackman is now in the front office. Eventually, maybe in another month, we'll be in the south front office, our new front office. So she's taken the place and the position that Deanne Perry has had for, I don't know, 5 years or so. Deanne's been here kind of part-time, working with Heidi. She's picking things up really well. Glad to have her on board.
Yeah.
We're glad you're here, Heidi. You want to say anything?
Just that I'm excited to be working for the city and looking forward to meeting some of you sometime.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, Heidi.
Thank you.
So her responsibilities would be accounts payable, dealing with utility accounts, new accounts, closing accounts, issues with accounts, water billing, and all of our billing, things like that. So,
Okay.
yeah, working with vendors.
And where will her office be? The one on the east side? Is that
It will actually be the one on the west side of the new lobby area.
By the big TV.
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
by the big.
As you come in,
Okay,
that
yeah.
desk right in front of you.
Straight in front.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that the reception that will be first greeted, or is it not? How is it?
Kind of
Whoever.
there and
Okay.
available. If someone's on the phone, they go to the other person or
Okay.
whatever.
Okay. Well, it's looking good in that office. So, well, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming to the meeting at your house.
See you later.
All right. Goodbye. So do we want to?
I'm texting him right
Okay.
now, so maybe we can just go to the next item if he's able to get on it. No, we'll have him on next time.
Okay, well, let's move on to action item B, the large animal ordinance. Austin, I think we want to have you
Okay, yeah, let's
kick it off again.
go into this. Okay, so this is something we've been drafting for a while now. The language that you see in the packet tonight is obviously different than what we looked at last time. So just to kind of give an explanation of where this language is coming from and why we've chosen some of the numbers and things that we've chosen here. So after looking at this, after the previous city council meeting, after we analyzed the feedback that we received from council members, and then we met with a couple council members following the meeting to just kind of flesh this out a little bit more. So ultimately, it was kind of we started to discuss the idea of an exception clause being added. So in particular for larger lots, that there would be some kind of exception outlined in our ordinance that would allow for larger lots to have more additional large animals. And so the language that we kind of drafted here says exceptions for additional animals may be granted by the city administrator on lots over 5 acres in size, with consideration given to proximity to neighbors, proximity to dwellings, and the overall percentage of land designated for the large animals to roam. So you'll notice in there that we do mention 5 acres. And so the reason why we kind of zeroed in on 5 acres, we discussed different numbers, but 5 acres seemed like a good standard. We wanted to base it kind of on our zoning, and as well as some of our other ordinances also use 5 acres as a precedence. So for example, when they created the zoning ordinance, 5 acres was intended to be kind of an agricultural zone, or larger properties where large animals would be kept. And so that was part of the reason why that zoning was originally created. Also, we have other standards in our ordinance, such as guest houses, which are only permitted on properties that are 5 acres or larger. So it just seemed to be a good number because it's already incorporated in other ordinances. And if it seemed like if you have 5 large animals on a property under 5 acres, it's probably okay. And the existing users that we do have around town, they tend to be on more than 5 acres anyways, that have more than 5 horses that are kind of grandfathered in already. And so that's the reason why that number was chosen. The exception clause really kind of gives some flexibility. You'll notice here that we chose to, we just drafted here the city administrator, but the idea is that at a staff level, this could be approved on a case-by-case basis, and we would look at factors such as proximity to the neighboring homes, how much of an area on the property they have for the animals to roam. For example, they could have a 3-acre property, but they only keep the horses on 10,000 square feet. So stuff like that and if that 10,000 square feet were right next to your neighbor, that would be taken into consideration.
I guess you mean a 5-acre property.
Yeah, let's say it's a 5-acre property, and returning to kind of from the previous meeting, Shane mentioned like an envelope, and then you have the stamp on the envelope, and you're keeping all the horses in that stamp. So that example
could be taken, you know, be addressed at this time through that method. You know, we could add in here, so the thought process is if we handle it at a staff level, and someone disagreed with the decision by staff, you know, potentially we could make it so that they could appeal it to the city council for an additional look at it. So, but, you know, we didn't want to have this be something that would burden the city council. So it seemed like it could be handled at a staff level, but if need be, maybe an appeal process could be put in place that would go to city council. So that's kind of what we drafted. Hopefully we tried to capture what was discussed in the previous meetings, but.
No, we
this is
didn't.
the draft.
Allowing a large animal on a 1/4 acre lot, I think that's ridiculous. It's fine for people that already have that right and let them keep that. But moving forward, I don't think that's okay for the neighborhoods. I would think that most of the people would not be okay with that. I think we need to at least go, they need to have at least a 1/2 acre lot, or go like what Highland's doing and say you have to have at least a 3/4 acre lot before you're allowed large animals. But I think allowing a large animal on a 1/4 acre lot is, I don't think we're doing a service to the community by allowing that.
Okay, so Carla, we did have that sort of discussion before. One of the thoughts I think I've heard though is that we don't have any complaints on that right now.
I don't think people know that they have any rights to complain. And moving forward, I think I am trying to picture somebody who lives in a small lot and having a horse and all the accompanying flies and everything else that comes in and not realizing. I think a lot of people are thinking, okay, they've had the horse, they have it, but it's going to be short term. It's not going to be there forever.
Okay.
Well, off of that point, I mean, we do currently have this standard in kind of the downtown area. So all the area around City Hall, there are large animals that on smaller properties.
Right. But going
know,
forward, you have people that, I mean, who knows if it's going to happen, but you know, you have people that are going to be moving in and they're not going to want that. It's there, but I don't think they're going to think that that's going to be there forever. And it's fine for the ones that are already there. But I don't want people moving in thinking, oh, I can have a tiny lot and still keep a large animal. I don't think that's fair to the other neighbors that are there. And I think if you're asking those neighbors around them if they'd rather have it or not, you know, I wouldn't think that they would want it. I've lived in several neighborhoods where there have been horses. I've never complained about it, but I have not liked it.
Okay, other comments besides the 10,000 square foot start? What is your thoughts on the rest of what was explained, Carla?
The rest of it is good, but I really do think we need to go to at least what Draper's doing, if not what Highland is, our next door neighbors, as far as the requirements.
The beginning requirement.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, Greg, do you have any comments on this or thoughts?
No, not particularly. I understand the reasoning for a 1/2 acre minimum. You know, I could be convinced either way, just that I don't think have many horses in the 1/4 acre, and there don't seem to be, you know, complaints about it currently. But I do think that could make sense to go to that. I've you know, thought that before, but.
Okay, thoughts on comments on the rest of it?
Yeah, I'm fine with the rest.
Is that, well, so Jason, your thoughts and comments on this?
I tend to agree with what Carl is saying. With the second part of it, exceptions for additional animals may be granted by the city administrator. So is that just a random thing? Are there calculations or parameters attached to that, or is it how does the city administrator say yes to one person and no to another person?
I think Austin mentioned some of the things that would be considered. So some of the formulas that were kind of being discussed 2 weeks ago would actually, with some of the properties and residents that we've dealt with code enforcement issues with large animals, would actually allow them to have more animals than what they had. And so the thought process with this exception is we don't have a lot of these situations, rather than turning everything completely upside down from what it has been for many, many years, to have this exception process. And I don't need to be the one to be it. It could be someone else. I think Austin's thought process on that was the appeal could be the city council. So if someone thought that they weren't treated fairly or whatever, they could come to council. On the other end of things, I've been around when this animal ordinance was discussed years ago, when there was a packed house. Every seat was full in the city council room. And there were a number of those people that were from smaller lots that had animals. And I don't remember exactly what was being considered. It seems to me like it was when the provision was being put in there for not having an enclosure any closer than 75 feet to a dwelling, is my recollection. But changing it so that a 10,000 square foot lot could not have a large animal hasn't been public notice. So really, the public doesn't know that the council may be changing that. I would recommend, if you're going to do that, to have a public hearing so that if there are people, citizens that have concerns with that, that they could at least be heard. We started out. Sorry?
We're getting comments on YouTube.
Okay. You just echoed. Just continue.
Okay. We started out more addressing kind of having more animals, and then the discussions kind of morphed into the other end of the spectrum too. So that really wasn't discussed when they had the public hearing at that planning commission, correct, Austin?
Correct, yeah. And Shane, the way you would look at this would also be, one animal per 10,000 square feet, right? That's part of, would be your calculus, proximity to neighbors, dwellings, overall percentage of land, looking at, I'm sure that the standard otherwise applied, right?
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, some of the things being thrown around last time is, if somebody had 10 acres, that would be 40 large animals.
Which seemed too much.
Right. And so with this exception, the Mendenhall Ranch out there has been there for a long time, and it'd be a grandfather's thing. But if something came on a big piece of property like that, and they had the facilities and had the room and was kind of away from homes, that could be considered in how many animals they could be allowed. And like I said, it is just an idea. If the council doesn't like that idea, we can go a different direction.
It sounds like this to me. I think the problem is there's someone with 8 acres was limited to 5, right? Mm-hmm. Then there's another one with, I think, like 65 acres, mm-hmm. and they have like 7, and they're in compliance.
Right.
10 acres a horse. And so this could meet them.
Can you hear Greg when he's talking? Jason?
Just barely.
Speak up.
Needs to speak up, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if we want to address that minimum lot size, the beginning lot size, Do we want to start fresh? I can't say fresh with this, but start with another public hearing and move with a different suggestion, or how do you want to approach this? Because it seems like there is enough concern about the quarter acre lot.
I would prefer that. Like I said, when that realtor started calling and said, was advertising horse property in Alpine on a quarter of an acre, I didn't like that. I don't think that's what, there's nothing wrong with large animals and having them, but I don't think most neighborhoods are planning for that. And I would hate to see a big draw because our minimum requirements are so little. And honestly, I would rather it go back to planning commission and see if to have a public hearing to increase the minimum lot size. I'm okay with everything else that's outlined.
Well, I do like this exception aspect of it. And I personally would like to see if we could, to Jason's point, maybe get some more definitive guidelines, and if 10,000, if there are enough guidelines currently, or if it is something that we need to make it not be so vague. But I would like to have the administration just take care of some of those kind of things without having it come back to us unless it is an appeal. I personally like that approach.
I agree with that, Lon. I think, I don't know if it's to the city administrator or if it's to the city council,
Right.
but maybe we can attach some things. I like that as well.
Right. Okay, well, what do you want to read some of the
Well, we
comments?
have some comments. I got an email. They're just saying that we're not seeing their comments on YouTube. So I pulled up the YouTube chat here. It looks like Martha Williams and Jamie Savage, the primary people commenting on there.
Okay, let me- how do we want to? I guess I need to decide how we want to do that. I don't know if the comments will matter if we may have a motion that we move this to a public hearing. I do want to move into public comment if we don't move it to a public hearing. So maybe we could entertain a motion right now. Then I'll entertain a motion and see how the motion goes, and then in discussion I'll go into public comments.
I'll take a shot at it.
Okay.
I move that we table the ordinance 2021-5 animal ordinance to go back to planning commission so that they can have a public hearing to increase the minimum lot size from 10,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. However, have the rest of the ordinance stay as is, as stated.
Okay, we have a motion by Carla Merrill.
I'll second.
Okay, and second by Greg Gordon. Let's go into discussion on the motion then. Hiram, is that the appropriate process that we would want to do legally?
Yeah, that process is fine if you want to refer it back to the planning commission for them to consider it, to hold another public hearing on the matter. You're fine to go that route.
Would we have to have a public hearing if we didn't want to change the minimum lot size and just move forward with the proposed 5 acre lot or 5 acre size to be approved? Anything additional approved by the administrator? Do we have to have a public hearing on something like that?
Remind me again, Austin or Shane, where this ordinance has been. Has it gone through planning commission beforehand?
It has gone through planning commission. The original proposal that went, so the very first meeting that went to planning commission, the idea was discussed to remove the cap of 5 large animals on a property and just say you can have as many animals as you have acreage for, and 1 animal for every 10,000 square feet. So we have that was a public hearing in planning commission. Then it came to city council. City council looked at it, tabled it. They wanted the language changed, and so we changed the language to add this exception clause, and now that's where we're at right now.
So the answer would be, I don't believe another public hearing would be required.
Okay, okay. All right. So any other discussion, Greg, you want to?
I have. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Well, if we don't need a public hearing, I want to rescind my motion to, I would want to change my motion.
No, my question, Carla, was if we don't address the minimum lot size and just move forward with it as it's proposed, do we need a public hearing? And the answer was no.
So Hiram, if we do want to change it to increase the lot size, do we need a public hearing?
That's a good question. I think your safest bet would be to send it back down if you're reconsidering it, but you might be able to technically say that your public hearing has been heard on this matter, since they did below consider the lot size. They just considered it at 10,000 square feet. But I think best practice would be probably to send it back down to planning commission. If you're already going to have them consider it anyways, you might as well have a public hearing on it again down there.
Honestly, if we didn't need to, I would just change the ordinance to change the number of the square footage as opposed to sending it back.
I think my opinion would be that we'd want the public involved more in that one.
Okay.
If we're going to send it back, based on what you said, I think it's best for the planning commission is if we give them very clear direction of what we want. So in this case, you're saying, do you want it to be like Draper's, which a minimum lot size of 20 with 1 additional horse for everyone after that? Or do they get 2 horses at 20? On your specific motion.
For me, I'm looking at, I guess I would want them to but I just think the lot size needs to be at least 20,000, if not 30. And I would like for them to consider between 20 to 30,000 as the minimum lot size, and then to determine the large animals.
So again, what I've learned is that the motion needs to be sending it back to the planning commission, and we ask that you give us a new ordinance with these parameters.
Okay, so I would ask that they have at least that the minimum lot size be 20,000 with 1 large animal, and then 1 additional for each 10,000 square feet. Moving forward.
So, Lon, could I make amended? I'm just trying to policy and procedures. An amended motion.
Yes, you could. Or
I like to make an amended motion that that everything that's included in Carla's is passed down to the planning commission, with the addition that we raise the cap on the number of large animals from 5 to 10. I say that because if I remember correctly last time, that's kind of the reason why it came. We had some issues there. The Williams family we talked to. This would just, over 10, we still might have those situations. And in those situations, it would come to the city administrator or to the city council. But my motion would be, in addition to what Carla said, increase the cap to 10 animals per lot.
Well,
Would you want to reconsider a lower number?
but Jason, you're referring though to every 10,000 square feet, though, 1 per 10,000 up to 10?
So the way I think I understood Carla's was you need 20,000 square feet to have a horse, for example, large animal. Each additional 10,000 after that, you could have an additional large animal.
Right.
My thing would be
Up to
on a lot
5.
size. Right now, the ordinance says the maximum is 5 animals. I would like to propose back to the planning commission that we change that to 10 animals as opposed to 5. For example, in the Whitby property over there, which is the one we talked about, there's 10 acres. That's a lot.
Right, but that's an exception though, because it has more than 5 acres. We're talking about anything under 5 acres here.
If someone had 3 acres or 4 acres, I think that 10 would still be a fair number in those situations. And again, these are individuals who are doing it more. I just think that's what I would like to propose as an alternative addition to your motion.
Okay, so if we have an amended motion, then Carla would need to.
I think I have to have a second on mine, don't I?
Yeah, well, I would think yeah, you could second it. Anyone could second it, yes.
Would you reconsider like 7 or 8? I just think 10's a lot. Unless you have more than 5 acres.
Okay, Greg,
Yeah.
you have a comment, Greg?
Jason, would you consider maybe a number of 8 as the max versus 10?
And it's hard because 10 on 4 acres to me seems fair. 10 on 4.5 seems fair.
But what about 10 on 2.5, right?
Yeah, so I would be open to, I just think we should increase that number, but maybe 8 might be a better number, Greg. That might be. I just think that I'd like to add that into it as well, since that's kind of how the whole discussion came about.
Yeah.
But I think it was more for lots greater than 5.
The Whitby property, which is
Yes.
10 acres.
It did come about with
Which we already are covering. So if you're talking about why we're changing this ordinance, the amended ordinance covers that because it's property greater than 5 acres.
So if someone's under 5 acres, they're still limited to 5 animals.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that should be higher.
I don't think you have very many.
Again, I'm going off of the conversations we've had last time with potential with residents who are requesting that. There are some who do have the 3-4 acres. You know, my in-laws had the alpaca farm. And they had quite a few larger animals on that. It made sense. I just think, what about 8? Throw it back there with 8 to 10. Let the planning commission decide between that number.
How about between 8 and 5?
All right, so my proposal is 10. My proposal is 8 to 10. So Lon, if we could see if there's a second on that.
Yeah, Jason, I'll second that. But Carla, I wonder if, would you consider amending to allow 2 animals per 20,000 square feet? And the reason I mention that is because these other cities, it appears that they have a minimum of 20 or 30, but they still allow 1 animal per 10,000 as a starting point.
Did you hear that, Carla?
I did. I just, I look at like, I guess the way I'm looking at it is, Greg, how big is your lot?
It's like under 1 1/4.
Okay, so mine's a half an acre, and I can't imagine having 2 horses on my lot.
Well, you could hardly have it on your lot because of your hillside issue.
But
Your-
even if it were flat though, and how it would work with and staying away from neighbor, I mean, even if it were flat, let's say, let's flatten out my lot. I'm just looking at the size of it, right? You flatten it out, and granted, if you have a smaller footprint for the building, but if you have a horse, or like everyone that has a horse, do they always have a structure or no?
Not necessarily.
So if you don't have a structure, I guess you don't have to worry about it, and they just would be roaming. To me, it just almost seems cruel to have 2 large animals on such a small piece of land.
Well, and that comes to the point that I mentioned before. I mean, part of it's concentration. If you have 5 acres, and Austin mentioned this, you have 5 acres, but 10 animals are concentrated on one little portion of that property. In most cases, I'm guessing there's going to end up being some kind of a complaint from someone. And I'm thinking of code enforcement cases that have been dealt with over the last 5 years. I can see some of those getting worse with a proposal like this. Maybe the property's big enough to accommodate that many large animals, but they're being concentrated in a smaller area and causing issues with the adjacent neighbors.
So I don't know. I like the idea of, what about the minimum being 30,000 and allowing 2 animals on that? Or are you really, Greg, are you set on 2 at half an acre?
Not necessarily, but I'm just looking at what other, the cities in the packet have done. They're all going 10,000 as sort of a standard, even when they have their minimum of 20, 30. So, yeah, I mean, I think you raise a valid point when you put a home, particularly a large home on a half acre, right?
And then to say you can put 2 horses on it on top of it, it just doesn't seem. And I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with Greg on this one. If we're going to do the 2,000 minimum size, that we allow 2 horses at that point with 1 additional, every 10,000, with a max up to 8 to 10.
5 to 8.
What's that?
I think you said 5 to 8.
No, I didn't say that.
No, he did say it. Okay, so we've got a motion on the table, an amended motion that we could, that I think we need to restate that.
I'm sorry, here, can I ask Greg a question? So Greg, are you saying that you want 20,000 minimum with 2 horses, or 30,000 minimum with 2 horses?
Well,
or large animals, sorry, not horses, but large animals.
I guess 20 with 2. As a practical matter, I would hope that someone wouldn't do that. But I mean, I understand what you're saying. It seems hard to do, but looking at our history and what other cities have done, that's why I'm saying it. I really wouldn't hope that someone would have, that dense, but I don't know, right? Maybe. You know.
Well, then honestly, if you're gonna have 2 at half an acre, then you might as well allow them to have it at a 1/4 acre. I rescind my motion.
Okay, so
I rescind my motion. I'd like to make a new motion to pass ordinance 2021-05 animal ordinance as outlined.
Okay, so I was reading on motions today, actually, and when we rescind a motion or take our motion back, we do have to actually have a vote on having you remove that motion. So I will push that to a vote right now. But Hiram, do we have to vote on the amended motion first, though? Even though
Did we get a second on that?
we did get a second on that.
Yeah, there was a second on that motion. I haven't seen your policies that you're specifically referring to, Lon, in terms of somebody rescinding their motion and whether that needs to be voted on.
Well, I did read today that we do have to have a majority vote on taking a motion back. So, and we can, but do I have to vote on the amended motion first? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I think so. It kind of got jumbled there in terms of the motion. I think you have a motion from Carla that was originally seconded by Greg. And then you also had an amended motion by Jason that was also seconded by Greg as well. So you have 2 pending motions. Now Carla wants to withdraw her motion. I think it's appropriate if you vote on that first. Again, I don't know. I don't have the policies in front of me that would spell out doing one over the other, but I think it's appropriate to have her to vote on that motion first if she's rescinding it, and then next vote on the amended motion that's by Jason.
Okay, so let's go to a vote on the rescinding Carla's motion. He's still talking, but we don't hear him.
He's on YouTube there, though. Right?
Oh, I see. Yeah. We're hearing it play. Those in favor of allowing Carla to rescind her motion, say aye.
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 Jason?
Nay.
Okay. That does pass. Now we do have an interesting situation tonight, though, where there is only 4 of us. We do have to have a majority vote, and that's 3 votes. Where I'm Mayor Pro Tem, I still get to vote, but we do have to have a majority vote.
Lon, do we still have Jason's motion, or was that part of?
So according to what Hiram just says, we do have Jason's motion on the table that we would now move to do. However, we should still stay in discussion on this, because I said that we would listen to the public comments if we were going to vote on what was on the table, right? That if, yes.
But it's Jason's motion to return this to planning commission to look at the 8 to 10.
Yes, that is true. All of Carla's, which is to turn it back to planning commission with the direction to go with an added piece to go from 8 to 10.
And can I ask
Jason, can you hear us? We're some kind of delay.
I can hear you.
Okay.
So the motion, then my motion would be that a minimum lot size of, and this is taking Carla's, the minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. And Carla said for one horse and one horse every additional 10,000. And then I added onto it with a max of 8 to 10 is what we like to send back to Planning Commission to have a public comment and ordinance write-up.
Raise the cap from the max of 5 to 8 to 10 or to 10.
Okay.
Right. So do you have any questions on that, Greg?
No, thank you.
Does that seem?
Right.
Uh,
Right. I think I seconded that.
Okay. Okay, so we have that motion from Jason, seconded by Greg. Any discussion on that motion then? Carla?
Yeah, no, I think that we should pass the ordinance as outlined by the Planning Commission. Now that, I mean, I was pushing for the larger lot size, but if really it's going to come out to one-on-one for every 10,000, you might as well just pass it as outlined. It's not going to be that different. So
But
I don't see
point,
why
Carla,
we need to push it back to them except to allow more animals per lot, which I don't agree with either.
as a side note, Carla, what we're voting on here was not what was proposed by Planning Commission. This is something that's happened since the Planning Commission really isn't a part of this ordinance.
Right. No,
This
and that's why
modification
I'm
at all.
saying I'm not for the motion, that I will be voting, you know, if it were up to me, I'd vote for the original ordinance as everything is played out.
And I just add though, I think there's some benefit to the half acre that we discussed last time and this time, because, you know, we do have the quarter acre zone. You know, and if, you know, you know, as you've laid out here, putting a horse around those relatively small lots with, you know, a home in there, it's always seemed a little awkward in terms of a planning balance, I think. So anyway, I think that's a worthwhile thing to limit for the going, you know, the non-grandfathered situation.
Okay, any other thoughts on that, Carla?
No.
Jason, what, along with giving them specific directions as you outlined, what's your thoughts on an appeal clause based on, do you feel like they need any direction on who gives the permission on lots over 5 acres? Because your motion had a max on a per lot. Does that mean you're maxing out every lot to 8 to 10? Or can we increase based on anything over 5 acres being addressed by the city administrator or the council?
That's a good question. I mean, I think our previous ordinance, it just maxed out at 5, right? Without the ability
Correct.
to appeal thereafter.
Correct.
This one maxes out at 10. The question is, do we want to create, like you said, an appeal process to be able to go past that? Even going right now to 10 is a better one for our citizens, you know, the horse lovers than the other one. So I'm open to either. Part of me wants to say, okay, let's max it out at 10. And our ordinance is a little bit better than it was
But
before.
then let's move to an 18-acre parcel.
Do we have those?
Yeah, there are some.
Yeah, I'd be open to that though, Lon, to have a appeal process to the city administrator or the city council.
So I think what you're talking about, Lon, is the same language in green that we have here.
Correct. Same language in green, just considering that, considering the minimum lot size as proposed by that motion that you've laid out, with a limit to those smaller lots. But anything over 5, consider an appeal. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. It's a good question. I mean, what we got back from the planning commission was they just simply took off the limits on it, so it could go as high as they wanted. Now we're putting a limit back on it that's higher, but that's for, that could either be for 5 acres or less, or it could be for all acreage, like the old ordinance was.
Correct, because we all felt like we need to limit it somehow. And we couldn't come up with a good way of saying 10,000, every 10,000 or every 20,000 or every 15,000. It was difficult. I think that if we can use some of these criteria of proximity to dwellings, to neighbors, to a percentage of overall land that the animals would be on, hillside, those kind of things, to get some of that criteria, then we could legitimately limit the amount of animals on a larger lot.
So yeah, I would, can I add that to my motion, pushing it back to the planning commission?
Yes, you could.
So if I was to modify it up, saying that the items in green here, exceptions for additional animals will be granted by, instead, and replace Alpine administrator with the city council. So exceptions for additional animals may be granted by the city council for lots over 5 acres with consideration given to proximity to neighbors, proximity to dwellings, and overall percentage of land is designated for large animals to roam. I say the city council because I really don't think this is going to happen at all, but if something did come through, it might be nice for the city council to play a part in that.
Okay. Okay, are you good with that adjustment, Greg?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll just need to review our ordinance to make sure it's defined who the appeal authority would be, since the city council would make that decision.
Okay.
To grant more animals. So.
Okay.
It could already be covered, but we'll just have to check that.
Okay. But at least we'll have it in the ordinance that says it could be appealed. Okay. Okay. All right, let's, any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, we'll move to a vote. Okay, those in favor, Jason Thielen?
Yes.
Carla Merrill?
Nay.
Greg Gordon?
Yes.
Lon Lot, yes. Okay, so this will move now back to have a public hearing. Do I understand it now that we'll go back to have a public hearing on the minimum lot size and the other adjustments as outlined in the motion, correct?
Correct. And Lon, can I ask you one question? Obviously, last planning commission, it felt like they spent more time talking about the motion and how you or I have felt about it than the actual case of easements and those things. What's the best way to make sure that should Marla send that off to me and then I say, yeah, that's what I meant, and send it off to everyone else and get their signatures? I just don't want to have another situation.
I think it's best if we have Bonnie read the motion out right now so that everybody's on the same page that that's the motion that was made tonight.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, here we go. Bonnie's gonna.
So Jason Thielen moved that we table the ordinance 2021-8 to go back to the planning commission and have a public hearing to change the minimum or the maximum. I can't remember.
It would be the minimum.
The minimum of 10,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet, with the addition that we raise the cap from 5 large animals to 8 to 10 large animals per lot, with the additional exception for additional animals may be granted by the city council on lots over 5 acres in size, with consideration given to the proximity of neighbors, proximity of dwellings, and overall percentage of land designated for the large animals to roam.
Did you hear that? You're muted.
I heard it, but I don't think it was exactly right. Can you start again? Don't have to say the ending part, but just to the point about the 20,000 square feet and the number of animals that are attached to that. And do we want to say that we're sending it back to them to modify the ordinance and set up a public hearing?
Yes, I said that.
Yeah, she said, that, but one thing, Bonnie, to clarify, you read 2021-08. On the first page of here, it says -05, and then, you know,
It's a way.
and then it says 08.
It is a way.
It is 08. Okay, so we're good.
But the minimum lot size, the number of animals was not identified unless I missed that part.
The minimum was 2 animals
20,000
per 20,000.
feet. Yeah, that's what.
I'll have that in parentheses.
Can you read that?
So that's the part I like her to repeat so I can hear what she said again. I didn't think it was all there.
Okay.
So I said it went from 20,000 square feet, and I just put 2 animals.
Okay, so it went from 10,000 to 20,000 square feet. With at 20,000 square feet, you have 2 animals with up to 1 additional animal for every additional 10,000 square feet, where there's a max of 8 to 10 animals. And then it goes on to the second part of the appeal.
Correct.
Okay.
And I can send this off to you to make sure it's correct.
Okay, she'll send it also.
Great.
Okay, all right, thank you. Let's move on. With that, Austin, you have some work on that prior to your planning commission. When do you meet with Hiram on some of this stuff, or do you meet, or you send it email, or what?
So we have a scheduled meeting every week, planning commission. So the same day as planning commission, we meet with them earlier in the day.
Okay.
And if need be, we can contact them.
Okay, so all the public comments that were made on YouTube concerning this large animal ordinance the council would like to see that also. Can you send that out when? Is there a way to do that?
Well, we could see it on YouTube, I think, as it's recorded on the screen. If that was
Commenting in the chat box. So I don't know if that's saved on YouTube once this meeting is turned.
I don't think so,
closed.
but the video might have captured it, the recording on your screen.
So this is where they're commenting.
Okay, so scroll up and hold it there for a minute then. So if it's recording on this right now, that's what you're saying is we can look at this and see, move your cursor off of that thing. Okay. All right. And now it's page down again. And so if that was a page down. Okay. Okay, I think that's good enough. Then if it's recording, we can read those. But they have their opportunity to come to a public hearing as well and express
there will be a public hearing in the next meeting. So
okay. Do you need more than 10 days on this one, no, or just a week?
I think
okay.
It's a 10-day noticing requirement. Yeah.
So is that enough time?
It won't make it till next week's meeting. It'll be on the March 16th meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, let's move on. Item C, accessory building setback exception criteria. I know we have some people here today that would like to make some comments on that. Why don't, Austin, we start out with probably a brief introduction on this because we've been over this several times. but anything new that has come in, oh, there's my second page. I would like to start to cover. Yeah, so start.
Okay, I'll try and, so this has gone back to planning commission. They looked at some language that staff drafted. So just a brief recap, essentially 2-foot minimum side setback is being proposed on all structures. Unless, so if it's in an easement, the planning commission proposed that there be an additional series of criteria for buildings located with an easement. One being that it not be permanently attached to the ground and can be moved or relocated in 24 hours. And 2, that the owner acknowledges that they bear the cost of moving the structure. And if not, they will be assessed fines and the cost of moving that. So that was it. 12 foot 6 inches is the proposed height that they're looking at. And any structure in an easement or a setback would have to be less than 200 square feet in size and could not have any type of utility running to it. So that's kind of in a nutshell what they are sending to you tonight.
Okay, so we've had a lot of discussion on easement things now, and in fact, Shane sent us all an email that has Utah code, and he highlighted things. Did the council read that? Did you have a chance to get that, Jason? Email concerning Utah code on public utility easement. And Carla, did you? Is Carla still with us?
I am, but I did not get that.
Okay.
Carla, are you getting your emails through your Alpine City email address?
No. I thought it was supposed to be forwarded, but I haven't been getting a lot of stuff.
Okay, because that's the address that I sent it to.
Yeah, I never got it.
I'll send it to you right now.
And Jason uses Solution Stream.
Okay. So,
but I
go ahead.
I do check my Alpine City mail as well, but I do appreciate CC Austin to both of them.
Okay. So, but did Jason, I can't remember, did you say you did get that easement?
This is the one that simply talks about mostly about the state's responsibility to be able to tear it up, to be able to fix it when they tear it up, and some of those type of things.
The utility.
Yeah,
company.
I've also talked to Shane directly on that, so he explained that to me as well.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's we have 2 gentlemen here today with us that would like to make a comment. I assume both of you would like to make a comment. Why don't we hear from you then, Ron? Yeah. And I don't know if you need to get closer, if you can speak loud enough.
I'll project. Can you guys, Carly, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so I'm Ron Robinson. I live in Feikelhorn, and I got involved in this process because I actually got a cease and desist, do not build anymore. So I'll give you the backstory. In July, I decided to put up a pool. And so we were putting the pool up. I gave the person the deposit, and he was going to do the exact same layout, sort of as my neighbor 2 streets over on Sunrise. Well, I got a cease and desist. I found out that actually he hadn't done the building permit. And so I found out it was denied. I was quite concerned because this is literally the exact same builder. It's a foot off the property land, and it's the exact same pool house structure with no difference. And that was approved, and now I'm being denied. So I said, okay, so what do I got to do? So I called, was told by the city they need to go in and find these easements and get them relieved. So I called the the utility companies, and they actually have a system which is quite simple. And I've listened to the whole year's discussion on the city council, the planning, and everybody's a little bit overhyped on some of this because I made the phone call. The city person said, "What's your lot? What do you want to do? Where is that you want to do?" They're very protective of the frontage of the house, but the side and the back, they really aren't so concerned about. So as the document that I submitted to the city, you guys have had this since January, and you'll see two different forms. I won't read the whole thing, and I mailed it to every single member of the council. But what you see from Rocky Mountain Power is that they do give, allow me to encroach, and they also say the presence of your structure. I called them a second time. They knew I was trying to do a pool house with full utilities to it. I called the person again this week and just confirmed, you guys know that I'm going to put footings and I'm going to put a structure, an 8x10 structure. He said, yeah, we have no problem with that. We don't plan to do anything, but the power company, they do say we don't want any responsibility if you hurt yourself or if you do anything. And if we ever do have to get in here, we just want to know we have language here that we might have to. We don't ever expect it. The gas company, same thing. I called the gas company, talked to the person there, and they said, "Where's your lot? What's your situation? What do you want to do?" And I explained this. Is yeah, that's not a problem. Their language is much more concise, and it basically says that they grant hereby disclaim and release any rights, title, interest, which it may have in and to following described real estate property. So both of them basically are totally fine with me having a structure there. So my concern is, as a citizen, we've got literally 100 places. We had 3 different families who came in and started this whole thing. I've talked with them. They're all out of town right today, but you had the Binghams, the Cushions, and the Strongs, and they broke out the neighborhood and found that there was over 100 different facilities that are very much in question. And what are we going to do now? How do you try and organize this? So my 2 things. One, I think we need to, as you guys are working on, try and tighten the language up. But if it's dirt, if there's not conduits and there's nothing that's active, and the utility companies give you the ability to build a structure on it, I think the city ought to take that and use their language if they want to, but start allowing these things to be compliant. The other thing that's talking about is it being temporary. I think it's so intellectually inconsistent. I love the fact we have a lawyer on today because I love his thoughts, because when you're having people put in retaining walls, putting in a fence, putting in a big tree, putting in a water feature that has electricity to it, you've got structures that people have outlets and they have power and spigots to their sheds. And then you have the pool houses, and some have been literally approved by the city and others are just there. So my recommendation would be, if we can tighten it up, be intellectually consistent, where anytime we're going to put something in the ground, we don't care if it's just dirt. And then I would also say that it makes sense. We probably have maybe less than a dozen of these applications that are currently pending. Let those go through, and then realize going forward, once we have a new ordinance going forward is actually going to sort of have more of a checkpoint where we say this is a different time, different era. So that's my thought. My personal experience has been very frustrating trying to find consistency with the city, and I'd love as a citizen for us to tighten it up.
Okay, thank you, Ron, for your comment. Okay, Mr. Pickering, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, my project is quite simple. I want to have a garden shed go next to the garden.
Hey, Lon, we're having a hard time hearing.
Okay.
It has no power, has no running water.
Hang on a second. Shane, would you change chairs with him so he could get a little closer to this? It's still hard. It is hard to hear.
We just have to use a microphone on here, unfortunately.
Okay, we got him a little closer. Here, we're going to make this attempt.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I talked to Austin a couple of weeks ago. I had talked to the city prior to this, and I thought it was going to be within the code or whatever the restrictions are. So we just want to build a simple garden shed or have one built. It'll be 10 by 14 in size. It'll be on a gravel bed on wood skids so that it can be moved. It will not have any electric power, any running water. It'll just be full of my garden tools. It will be 12 feet tall, 12 feet 2 inches tall. And the way it's situated now to be about 7 feet from the property line. But that is a temporary building, so if some utility construction had to be done behind it, it could be easily moved. It's a temporary sort of thing. So I'm just wanting to get approval to do that. And so that's why I'm here.
So I guess, Mr. Pickering, your concern is the height more than anything else then?
Yes, right.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you for your comment.
Okay, thank you for listening to me.
Okay,
I just say one thing.
yes, go ahead, Shane.
So our number one goal when we're reviewing plans, so when somebody submits a set of plans for a building permit, they come, myself, Austin, Jed, and the fire chief, review the plans, we kind of help each other out and have another set of eyes to look at things, but we each have our own things that we specifically look at. I mean, our number one goal when we're doing that is to look at them fairly, treat everyone the same. And so, Mr., not to be disagreeable with Mr. Robinson, but if I would love to pull that set of plans out on the pool that he's referring to and look at that and see what the setbacks were shown, because after that, unless there is some complaint or some issue, the three of us, Jed, Austin, and myself, never deal with that again unless there's some complaint. If it's a building that requires the fire chief to go and inspect something like a sprinkler system or something like that, then he would see it again. But after we sign off on that initial submittal, which typically is just a site plan showing the footprint of the building with respect to the property lines, we don't see it again. It's passed off to building inspection. So
Does the building inspection go out to see if they were set back properly?
Yes, they should. And, on a home, a lot of these buildings, accessory buildings, some of them don't require permits or haven't required permits if they're under 200 square feet and different things.
Okay.
So
we wouldn't be expecting, those.
Yeah.
Ones, so.
Okay.
But, in the case of this pool, I can't remember how it came about, but we found out they were building a pool without a permit, and he stated that.
Yeah.
So, we appreciate his cooperation and kind of getting things back lined out the way they should be. So we do try to apply the ordinance as it stands. If it changes, we'll try to apply that ordinance as it's written and adopted by the council.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Obviously, we've got contractors who are supposed to get permitting on certain things, even fence, even though fence permit doesn't really, there's no real expense in that.
Yeah.
Still supposed to get a fence permit, and we see that not happen as well.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we have permits, and really some of them are almost a courtesy to the community, because if you go and put that fence in, you put it in the wrong spot, we're going to have to tell you to move it. And so the idea was if we offered a free fence permit, we could catch those up front, hopefully prevent that from happening before you install it.
okay. Well, we hear Mr. Robinson's made some very good points here. In fact, in some of his emails, he brings out some of those points as well. And obviously, consistency is a concern. Yet sometimes we don't even know that it's going on to be consistent with some things. Does that make sense? I mean,
What? Yeah, but I guess this is a 8 by 10 structure.
yeah.
But I'm getting the easement issue. I'm also getting the utilities, and somehow this guy got an approval, and I've got pictures, and it's
Okay. Okay.
we have a lot of examples.
So let's. We're going to have an issue tonight. It's already almost 8:45. We're supposed to be ending this meeting at 9. And there's really a lot to cover on this one. We do have one other thing on the agenda, and that is the 300 North Well rehabilitation thing, which probably won't take long. But we do have an issue with time tonight. So what's the thoughts on having a little bit more discussion on this and then moving this to the next meeting to continue it? Or what do you want to do?
I'd like to see how much progress we can make in 20 minutes and then see if we extend for, you know, at a minimum to get to that last agenda item. Maybe continue this one or see if we're close.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Did you hear Greg's thought? Do you agree with that, Jason?
Yeah.
Okay, Carla, how do you feel about that?
Yep. Let's move
Okay.
forward.
Okay, let's move forward then with more of this. Jason, do you want to start with anything as far as would you like to consider the proposed motion that the Planning Commission moved forward to us, or would you like to have some discussion on the easement issues that really aren't fully addressed in the motion from the Planning Commission?
I personally, maybe we could separate the two items out, hit the
Okay.
height item on one issue, because in the easements, they're two very distinct things. On the easements, I would like to delve a little deeper in there.
Okay.
Specifically, I sent out an email to everyone regarding my concern with the easements a little bit. I reached out to Lehigh and asked them about if someone wanted to vacate their easement, could they? And they said, yeah, we have a document. So we give them, they go and sign these with the people, different utilities. And if we find that they're not going to be using that easement, we let them build on it, a permanent structure even, and utilities. And I thought, oh, that's something I didn't, I had no clue about that until yesterday when I reached out to them. I would like to think that we would look to not limiting people's use of their yards if we don't have to. And so we would look at it from a standpoint of we're not just going to grab, 10 feet off the back of everyone's house and 5 feet off the side of everyone's house. And in all likelihood, 99% of the time, we're never going to put anything in that space where we're going to lock them out of the ability to build a nice kids' playhouse out there. Maybe they want to pull in electricity and have a fun thing out there in the corner of their property. They can't. So I think that's a separate conversation, maybe for a different day. But that's actually an area where I'd like to look a little bit more closely if we can't find a way to let people take that property back and do what they want with it if we're not going to, if they can get those sign-offs from the utilities.
Okay. Okay, so you do, would you you'd like to talk about then the height right at this point in time? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and for the height, I think what the Planning Commission gave us looks good. There's different ways to do it, obviously. There's a site triangle that we can look at, or there's a setback off the space with the maximum height there, or there's how high do we want to make the wall that butts up against the neighbor's property? And then, I don't know, there's some different things we can look at there that maybe the Planning Commission hasn't looked at.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Jason. Greg?
Yeah, I think Planning Commission did some good contributions here. I had a few concerns. One is, while I think the 2-foot setback with a 12.5-foot height is reasonable, and I went and looked at actually Home Depot and so on, and when you get the larger shed size, they actually do go up to 12.5. So it seems to be something of an industry standard for larger sheds. Now, anyway, But I'd like to keep the 10-foot standard so that we're not pushing the standard higher at 0 feet. So there's an option to do either. You could go to your property edge, you know, with all the other requirements at 10 feet. But if you're going to go up to 12.5 feet, it's going to require at least a 2-foot setback. That way we don't have, you know, hundreds of sheds around the city that now seem incompliant, where they're, you know, within 2 feet to the edge, and we don't, you know, sort of incentivize taller sheds than people may need. Another thought is I'm a little worried about the overhead, both for the homeowner and the cities and the city to manage all of the documentation of easements for just for a shed. I think maybe it's different. You know, if it's a more of a true accessory structure, not within our exception criteria.
Meaning, I don't understand what you're saying there.
I think getting documentation of easement agreement from those owners is probably pertinent in some cases, maybe for a pool house. But I think for a shed, I just don't see that as really being necessary. You know,
Based on a couple things, based on the document, the public utility easement from the state, Utah state code. Is that?
Yeah, based on that, as well as the fact that we allow driveways and basketball courts. And I think getting under a shed shouldn't be problematic, particularly once the structure has gone in. You know, yeah. So,
Okay. Continue.
so
Sorry.
I mean, I think it's a good option where applicable, but I think for a shed that's, you know, on gravel or, you know, without footings probably doesn't have a need. And then I'm not sure if the requirement that it be moved is really pertinent. And there's a point there that I think may have started the movable topic that, you know, if the movable standard is 120 square feet. So if you're under that, you pay sales tax. If you're more than that, it's considered permanent and you don't pay sales tax. But that's more of a tax policy. I don't think the expectation is that people have movable sheds, you know, for, you know, in a location that's unlikely to have a utility run in, you know, the home's already built and so on. And then lastly, I think electrical, you know, a light on a shed might be useful. We should find a way to allow that. Maybe that requires a easement to be vacated or something in that circumstance.
I wonder if the electrical though is just a code issue and a safety issue more than anything. Is it need to be inspected to make sure it's to state code?
Yeah. So is that covered in sort of building code?
Yes.
Basically? Okay.
So, no, but what I think you're saying is that for a shed that's along the property line, that you'd like to pull electricity to that shed. Is that what you're saying? Or have the ability for them to do that?
Yeah, basically, right. So, yeah.
So it is in the ordinance, but no one can do it. It's against the law based on the ordinance. So
yeah, right. Yeah, and that's my point. I mean, that's what I'm thinking on sub point 8 here and 2 and 1 and so on. Some of these additions, I feel like they're kind of covered in state law or building code already. So I don't know if we need to do that unless it's sort of a service to the homeowner, but I doubt they're finding this anyway. It seems like they're not reviewing the code.
Okay, Greg, is that?
Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Okay, Carla?
Yes.
Chime in on some of this?
No, I was just reading over what Shane sent as far as the easements. I like the idea of what Jason said as far as, if the homeowners want to go through the process of having whoever owns the rights to that easement, have them vacate it, then let them build whatever they want. I think that would be okay. But at the same time, I mean, in theory, that sounds okay, but then you've got some people saying, well, I can't do that because maybe they can't get that easement vacated and whatnot. So I'm not sure. I feel like though the Planning Commission has done a good job of going over and maybe, defining as far as what we've asked them to do. They've defined what's permanent. They've looks like they made some adjustments to the height so that's a little bit taller. I think I'm okay with it as written.
Okay. So let's address this height thing then, as it pertains to where we measure things and what would be acceptable. Greg has outlined a way of doing, somewhat a way of doing that. There's been another suggestion that I'm just going to read this. The building will not be taller than X amount of feet, 12 feet 6 inches, if that's what we want to do, to the top of the roof line, is how it's been expressed before. What if it said, and this is the suggestion, what if it said something like this? At the property line, the vertical wall or roof height shall not be taller than 10 feet, according to what Greg's saying, with a roof line pitch no greater than X degrees. So if you start at the property line with a 10-foot high limit, that's as high as that building could be at the property line. If the pitch if it started at 8 foot and the pitch went up a 412 pitch or whatever, then the structures set further back from the property line will be limited in height to the roof height trajectory previously stated, whatever that pitch is. So if we had a 12'6", sort of based on what Greg is saying, if you set it back 2 feet, then the 12'6" could be similar to a 10-foot high right at the property line. Does that make sense? So let's address this height then. Carla?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say part of what you made sense, but then towards the end of it, you lost me, sorry.
Okay. So let's say you had a pitched roof. The peak of that pitched roof is the height that you could have, right? The limit, if we're limited it to a 12'6" building, the peak of that roof is 12 foot, the way we're talking right now, right? Right now, our current ordinance says that you could go back, you could have a setback of 10 feet, right? And have a 20-foot building, 20-foot high building. Of course, you'd have to meet all the code that goes into that. That isn't just a temporary type structure like we've been addressing here, but you could have it be 20 foot high. So let's say you take this accessory building, the smaller building, and start at the property line and have a pitch or a pitch with a certain degree, and you continue to move it back away from the property line. That means that your height of the building could just be taller as you move back. Which
I think you make a great point there, Lon. I mean, as it's written today, you could be 10 feet at the property line, right? But fortunately, there's almost always pitch going back, and it's So, you know, it's not usually that bad, right? And if you follow that 20-foot line, right, if our 12 and a half at 2 feet in, we're doing okay. It seems like, because we're.
Yeah, and especially based on some of the drawings that Jed had put out there, that you would still not obstruct a view if that, and that's one of the major objectives we're trying to do, is not we're trying to be respectful of the neighbor's view in that, right? So what do you say on something like that, Jason, as far as the height thing, with your recommendation? Does 2 foot setback allow?
I was thinking a foot setback. You know, if I was to modify something that Austin wrote up for the city council, I mean, the planning commission, I would change it from 2 feet to 1 feet. And for the most part, I like everything else that's in there. I don't know about the 24-hour move within 24. Let me ask you this, Austin. Why is that so important? When do we see an emergency that would require them to come in and move a shed in 24 hours? Meaning these aren't built on top of electrical conduits right now. Do we really ever see a situation where they're going to come in and an emergency is happening with?
It would be on city lines. So we actually, specific example comes to mind up in Box Elder. We have water lines, and in other parts we even have sewer lines that run along side property lines. So if we ever had a water line break or a sewer line break, we'd need to get access to that ASAP.
So the 24-hour thing really is only when that shed is sitting on top of some utilities that are already underneath it.
Correct.
In the case of city-specific easements for our sewer, a few water lines, we have those storm drains, ditches. My preference would be, those are the more likely ones. There's already something there. Just don't allow filling in that easement.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that totally.
And so, what do we call those easements? Would we call these city easements?
I mean,
public utility.
Yeah, typically they're specifically labeled like 20-foot storm drain easement or 20-foot sewer line easement, you know, and it's in favor of Alpine City.
Right.
So, Lon, I would say that I would be propose moving it from 2 feet to 1 foot side with everything else. I'd also, in thinking about it, we might want to think of adding another line on here. Don't know if the planning commission ever discussed if the shed is butting up against a non-residential lot, could we treat it differently? Meaning, I saw one of the ones that Austin sent out that's butting up to a school. If it butts up to commercial property, right now we've just let a building go in that was 2 feet off the property line that's got a height of over 20 feet. And then we tell the resident that you have to be back and you can only go 10. I'm just wondering if there's ever a situation where it's not butting up to residential, where we would be more flexible, where there's maybe an ability to ask for an exception in the same way we're doing with the animal property rights in those situations.
So Jason, I like where you're going with that, but I had a question why you wanted to reduce it from 2 feet to 1 foot.
Right now it's 0. A lot of people have built their houses based on 1 foot. Some of the stuff, I mean, I'm trying to fix a problem as best we can too, versus create an ordinance that still makes everyone tear down their buildings.
Go ahead, Shane.
Just one thing to consider on that, really to have a 0 setback, you'd have to have a 0 eve building.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if the 2 foot that Lehigh City, I think it was Lehigh City, right?
Yeah.
The 2 foot is to account for the eve, because our setbacks are measured to, like on a home, it's measured to the foundation, and I think that would translate to the same place on these accessory buildings.
I think that what if the shed is pitched this way and against has the back to the shed? That was the only way I saw where you wouldn't have drainage onto a lot, really. But otherwise, I think
Turn it
they've
sideways.
got to be off or they're going to drain onto the adjacent lot.
So there's a watershed issue with the building, Jason, that
Yeah,
you need to keep
so
it on your own
We could put
property.
that in the ordinance then, 1 foot off property line with no overhangs, or your water has to be. You can't
It's a
go onto
good,
the neighbor's property.
and that's in point 3 there. It does say no drainage from the roof will be discharged onto an adjacent lot. So that, if that's followed,
Yeah.
it should.
Okay, I'm gonna need a motion to extend the meeting.
Make a motion to extend the meeting until 9:20.
I'll second. I was going to say 9:20.
Okay, I've got a motion to extend the meeting to 9:20. And a second, a motion by Jason Thielen and a second by Greg Gordon. In your motion, would you entertain how much time you want to spend continuing on this discussion on height?
And we'll spend 10 more minutes on this.
Okay. Okay, got a motion by Jason Thielen to extend the meeting to 9:20, spending 10 more minutes on the discussion on accessory building height. The second by Greg Gordon. You good with that?
Yes.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right. Continue, Jason, if you wanted to continue. So 1 foot, you're suggesting 1 foot. I've been on lots of properties that have real close buildings, and I personally like the 2 foot. It just give more room for the ability for watershed and a fence to go in, and just different things like that. I still sort of like the 2 foot. That 2 foot also makes me feel a little better about pushing the height as well. We do have to, this does have to be somehow a very easy way to measure things, though. We've got to be able to have it easily applicable to every situation.
Right now, we're at 0 setback, right? Requirement.
Right. 0 setback with a 10-foot height. That's what we're at currently. With to follow those other conditions as well.
And right now, we're focused only on the height aspect. Is that right?
Yeah.
The discussion.
Yeah.
So question, you talked about pitch. Do we need to consider pitch if we're talking about maximum height? Or for simplicity, can we just say height, or is there benefit to considering the pitch?
I would defer to Shane on an answer to that question when we talk about that. You're an engineer.
I mean, my concern would be getting the formula too complicated so that the average resident would have trouble understanding what it really means.
Which means then, how would you see it?
I mean, I think the easiest is if it's just measured to the ridge line and doesn't deal with pitches and, or slopes or degrees or whatever units were proposed in there. That's just my thought.
And that's what we do with homes, correct? Versus pitch.
Yeah.
Okay. So measured to the ridge line 1 foot back, 2 foot back. The only difference that would make is simply the view from the adjacent lot, right? The ridge line, the pitch would make the view a little different if there was a pitch. If the height was 12.6 though, and right over to the edge of the property, it was 12.6 because it was a flat roof.
Right.
Right? Because that's the height we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Then that would cause the visual to be different than having a pitch on it.
It would, and I can think of one, and it wasn't a small accessory structure, and I assume this has been built, but the guy did put a flat roof because he could not make the setbacks work with our ridge line. That's part of our ordinance, our height measurement there. So he put a, you remember that one?
Yeah.
He put a flat roof.
Yeah.
Or relatively flat.
Well, that's
Almost flat.
I think that's interesting. Yeah, because that's potentially a risk, right? Most of these have pitch roofs, right? I noticed some language in the United Kingdom, and they talk about a dual pitch roof, or and maybe that's good language just to include, right? Because it is very different if it were, a flat rectangular structure.
Yeah.
That height.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to make a comment that
Okay.
based on so we've recently, in the last, I would say, year or two, we've required a height calculation to be shown on site plans for homes. And I would say I get a lot of questions on how to calculate, how to do the calculation, how to put this and how to show the math. And just the idea of any type of calculation is going to make something difficult. And this is for architects and builders that have a hard time understanding it. And I would hate for, just a common Alpine resident to have to deal with some kind of calculation that would make things more complicated than need be. So just a comment. I just want to throw that idea out there. We don't want to make it too complicated with math.
Okay. All right. Where are we going with this then, Jason? Do you have any solid?
I guess if it was me and I was writing it myself, I would change it from 2 feet to 1 feet, and I would make a process that they could actually pull, for example, electricity to it if they were to get sign off by certain utilities. That's what I would do in this. And I say that because right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can pull electricity over to trees that might be back, for lights and stuff like that. We don't look or a water feature I just think that it'd be nice if we had a ability for them to pull electricity to it in this ordinance if they did certain things. But other than that, it looks good to me.
Greg, did you have?
No, I agree, and I had some thoughts on these other utilities. So basically, anytime you're doing this, you should have a building permit. Is that the code? Yeah. So I just think we should just be careful to phrase this in a way that doesn't prohibit it entirely if they meet building code and get a permit and go through all the steps, right? Because it looks like this would prohibit it entirely, even with that. With 0.8.
Right. So I know we're talking specifically right now about height, though.
Yeah.
You're bringing
Sorry,
up
it was a good point.
but it is all part of the same ordinance, which means that we really can't pass one without the other as we're into this, right?
So to Jason's point, I just make one comment. The 1 foot, I think shed eaves are relatively smaller. They're probably.
Can you talk a little louder?
I was saying, I think the eaves on a shed are smaller than a larger structure, certainly than a home, which may be 18 inches or 2 feet or something. But so a foot might, should be within the property line and leave drainage, I assume. But yeah, it's close.
Okay. Okay, Carla, did you have anything more to say? We've got, just to wrap this part of it up.
No, I don't have anything to add.
So it feels like the general consensus then is that the height, we would increase the height. Everyone's willing to increase the height. How about you, Carla? I don't think you've said anything on the height.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm okay with the 12.5 feet. I mean, honestly, I would rather see the 2 feet than the 1 foot, or maybe even 1.5. I guess I'm looking at, I mean, I guess long as their eaves don't go over into their neighboring property, I'm just looking at the drip line, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's the
agree with
primary concern. And then, you know, water pooling in that area, it would just give you a little bit extra more, you know, extra room. Other than that, I really don't have,
Okay.
I mean, I think, you know, they've done what we've asked them to do.
Okay, Shane, did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a person could overhang their eave across the property line and have a rain gutter that directs water back
Yeah.
onto their own property. And that's, I think, what we don't want to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And property line is property line. You do not want anything hanging over at any point from the ground up to heaven.
Yeah.
Right. So the only other thing that I recall on the Planning Commission's recommendation here is they have down here 12 foot 6 inches or 13 foot. What's your thoughts on keeping it at an even increment, or what's the deal there? I mean, 12 foot 6 was recommended by the three families that had originally come with this, but
Well, my thought is 12.6 seems to meet the height requirements of larger sheds and what we're actually seeing in the community. And anyway, yeah, so.
okay. Carla,
I'm much more in favor of the 12.6 versus the 13.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to finish up here. I'm trying to get the general feeling on the height. It seems like everyone's good then, that's here tonight then, with the 12.6.
Well, and the 12.6 was the calculation that Jed had done as being in line with the accessory structure. So
okay,
I think that's why I landed on 12.6. So.
Well, I think to add something to that, I think Jed's calculation was based at 5 feet, not at 2 feet or 1 foot. So if you look at that diagram, he's saying if a shed was at 5 feet off and it had this side angle,
that is true.
To this height.
It is a 5 foot setback at a 13 foot. Would be the same height as a 12.
But he's at 13 there, yeah.
That was 13 feet because he was using even numbers in his calculation. But
yeah, but it would be the same visual as a 20-foot building being.
Yeah, I wonder if he said that in planning. Do you recall that?
He did make that comment in the last planning commission meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he said it's really not the same thing what they're being proposed here.
So I guess Jason, that's sort of where I'm coming from. The closer you push that height, then the higher it seems, versus setting it back just a little bit more. It won't obstruct as much. I mean, in theory.
Your viewing angle is greater affected.
Okay, so can we hate to keep doing this, but this seems this particular topic has sort of snowballed into something that has been different than any of the other things we've faced with before. Some of these other ordinances that we dealt with seem seem to be resolved. We seem to be able to make a decision and get it resolved. This one has been more complicated. I hate to keep pushing it out, but I think we've made some good progress on determining that we feel good about a height, the setback, and this doesn't talk about easements. We do need to address the easement a little bit more and make sure that we incorporate that in the whole thing. But we, I guess we're sort of split on the 2-foot setback versus a 1-foot setback, but I'm still inclined to have a 2-foot setback. And I know you're still at your 1 foot, Jason, but
Yeah, and Carla mentioned 18 inches. I thought that maybe that's in the middle.
but we're close on that, and I think that the height and the setback, we could come to a consensus on all of that here at the next meeting, right? Don't you think? That that would move forward. And I do think that we ought to have some wording in there then for a electrical type thing based on certain certain criteria as you're stating, because there are many places that do have electrical out to the edge of a property that's an outlet or something. But we do want to have them be safe and have it to code. Anything else that we want to have carry forward?
If we could get from Shane and Austin, if there is a exception process that we could attach to this, if for some reason one of these buildings backed up to non-residential, that might be nice to have on there as well.
Okay, I agree with that.
I do too.
And even Mr. Pickering, who's here tonight, he's wanting something back in the back of his place. No one's even around him. He's high on the hill, meaning whoever's below him can't even see.
There's nobody behind him. It's the hill falls off.
Yeah, there's nothing. There are some things that could be justified to have a small shed in the right there. So, and he's even he's even wanting only 12 foot, so he'd still be in the parameters there on something like that, even at that. So
I may have missed it on this list. What about the vacation of a public utility?
yeah. So that is something that we just didn't have time to talk. I think we really do need to address that and do something about it. I think that
Right, because there's maybe a couple hundred in that situation. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's a common situation.
it's a
We
common
need to address it.
situation.
On that, I would much prefer that they be required to get it vacated as opposed to just saying, hey, we reserve this easement for the utility, but we're gonna allow you to build nothing than they
Yeah.
build. I'd rather have the property owner have to get that vacation, and Mr. Robinson has shown it's not super
Well,
difficult. Takes a
what
little
they
bit of time.
did, in fact, I did it on the 12th and then the 14th and 15th, I got the response back, but the vacate is 2 different terms. So the public utility will actually let you vacate if you want to, but they get the engineer involved, they bring in the planner, and then they're very selective on just totally vacating. But they will give you the other thing where they're saying, hey, you can build on it, you have no problem whatsoever.
Do we have copies of those?
Yes.
Yes.
He's provided copies to me.
Yeah, so this right here, this they will give you within a day's notice, they're authorized to actually do that.
Okay.
And then this one,
Okay.
This is the one that says they know you're gonna.
This is
build.
an actual vacation.
That's a
The other
vacation.
one is just permission to build.
They're
there.
saying, yeah, your structure, they're allowing you to put a structure on there. But this are not vacating. And you can vacate, but that's a much more bigger process. This is a phone call. And then 3 days later, you get that saying you can put a permanent structure on it.
Jason, we can look at this with respect to that form you provided us from Lehigh City and see what language it has, and then be ready for the next meeting.
And I think Jed
Kim.
showed that some form or something.
I'm sure you guys know, I talked with Kim Struthers there. He's been there forever, so.
Okay. So any more, Shane? Yes, we want to do that. And then, was there anything else?
They didn't make it in here, Austin, I can't recall that, like a fence permit, everyone gets a permit just to make sure that all these boxes are checked.
Yeah, so that was one thing I had a suggestion is that we ought to still do a permitting process, but the question is, how big of a burden is that going to put on the staff? Is it going to be any different than what we have right now with them coming in?
Yeah.
Asking for a fence permit.
I mean, technically, right now, you're supposed to get a building permit for any building or structure. If it's over 200 square feet, or if it has electrical, or if it has plumbing, then you're required to get inspections on it. So it's actually no different than what we already have.
Okay.
We're fine.
Okay, so we're good then. And now we'll just need to publicize and make sure everyone's aware that this is the process you need to go through to put a shed on. That, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming and participating.
Thank you very much.
Tonight.
And we can put this on the agenda first next time before the animal.
We're committed to you guys. You do more work than we do, so we'll hang in there.
Okay. All right. So let's move into item D.
Do we need to table that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we do need a motion. I do need a motion.
I move to table ordinance 2021-06 until our subsequent city council meeting.
Okay, Greg Gordon made a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jason Thielen made a second on that motion. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Okay. All right, item D, 300 North Well Rehabilitation.
Yeah, did everyone read the cover sheet on
Thank
this?
you very much.
I did.
Yep.
Yes.
Pretty easy.
Okay, so I won't take time to go through all that. Basically, we have an issue. It really needs to be addressed. That well is very important to our middle zone in our pressure irrigation system because our sources are limited there. It's not an exact science. It appears that we need more development work done. We've met with the well driller who helped us out before. We had 5 of us in the room, brainstorm back and forth, and this is what we came up with that needs to be done. So that's our recommendation to the council, and we'd really like to jump on this so that he can get right on it and be ready for the irrigation season. Snowpack's looking better than it was a couple weeks ago, but it still could be better. So happy to answer any questions or whatever on this.
Hey, I'll make a motion. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
I make a motion to approve the proposal from Weddington Turbine Services for additional rehabilitation work on the 300 North Well.
Okay,
I'll second.
we have a motion by Jason Thielen, second by Greg Gordon. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that was unanimous. Get her going. Okay, staff reports. Chief William, do you have anything for us? Are you with us still, Chief William? We don't hear you if you are. He's dropped.
Hiram shaking his head.
Okay. Can you get rid of this so we can see who's here? All right, that's who's here. Okay, Chief Thompson, let's move to you.
No major items to report.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Good to hear your voice. Hiram, do you have anything for us?
Nope, nothing.
Okay, Austin?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Austin.
I don't have anything that can't wait if you're gonna talk about the Utah Lake.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I will talk about. Council, Jason, do you have anything?
Nope.
Carla?
No.
Okay, Greg?
Nothing. Thanks.
Okay, I miss you, Bonnie. Do you have anything? Okay. All right. So a couple things that I have is I'm a member of the Utah Lake Commission, appointed by the City Council to sit on that commission. That commission is its effort is to help in the cleanup and maintenance of Utah Lake. It consists of several of the communities in Utah County also on that commission is the Timpanogos Special Service District, as well as Department of Clean Water, DNR, a few other state entities that sit on that commission. It was developed several years ago by the state legislature to be an entity to work at preservation and cleanup. But there's a bill that's gone to the legislature this time to change that to what is called the Utah Lake Authority, and which would disband the current commission. There are several good points and bad points. Well, a few bad points, but several good points to that. But there is a concern. Am I moving in the right direction, Shane? A concern that the authority in that is going to be taken away from local leaders. American Fork, Lehigh, American Fork, Saratoga, Orem, Vineyard, some of these lakefront cities that have property near the lake are really concerned because of the way the bill is written. It would put some undue burdens on property owners there, and also take away some of their ability to have some control down by the lake on the land. There are some benefits. The benefit is that the rate we're going right now with the Utah Lake Commission, as far as our funding, the way we fund projects in cleanup, is just very minimal. And the way Representative Brammer said, it's like you guys are using a teaspoon to fix a problem that takes a huge loader, front end loader to resolve. And so his recommendation is that we move into this Utah Lake Authority and get the funding, annual funding from the state in the regular budget in order to take a bigger bite out of a problem that exists, and in reality, make the state more responsible for the resource that they are owners of, instead of just the local entities. So do you want to add more to some of that? So there is a concern. We were supposed to have a special meeting this morning. That got canceled because those who are working on the bill backed off a little and are rewording so that they can get more involvement or put more on the board. The concern that we as a city would have with this is that we're partners in the Timpanogos Special Service District, which if we don't have some kind of say and control, we may have conditions such that our rates will increase so substantially based on someone else deciding how to run the cleanup, that we'll have to increase our rates to our citizens so great that it will be a big burden. What did we want the council to, what was the? I've been in communication with Mayor Stout on this too. He put in his opinion that we should try and maintain local control. His concern is that the state's trying to just run everything and take away authorities, a lot of authority from cities and on a lot of different areas. And this is just another one of those areas where, he's concerned that we try and maintain that. So it affects us based on our sewer. It affects us mostly based on our sewer issues. So
basically, Dale Erkey, who is our Alpine's
Dale Erkey,
appointed representative on the Timpanogos Special Service District Board, wanted to know the council's feelings so that he could adequately represent our city in any decision that maybe Timpanogos, the board there, was asked to, vote in favor of the bill, oppose it, or remain neutral.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any feedback from you on that, Jason? Okay. Carla?
No, I just think, thanks for the update.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's good to know.
Okay. Thank you.
Unlike some of the other bills that are going through the legislature, these guys have, Representative Brammer's been willing to work with local municipalities and make something that will work for everyone.
Yeah.
Instead of the shove it down your throat approach.
Yeah. The other thing, Carla, this would apply to you. Your trails, right?
I am.
Oh, your trails. Okay. So never mind, Carla. Earth Day is coming up, and UVU has a bunch of volunteers that would be willing to, if we submit to a trail cleanup or whatever, to them, that they could send some volunteers up here. And I don't know when the trail day is, if it correlates with Earth Day. We need to just see if we can tap into that.
And, the trail committee, I believe, is having their first meeting tomorrow night, so that's something that can be discussed there.
Okay. Are you going to attend that or? Okay, well, if you're not, I can just pass this on. Okay, that's all I have. Okay. Shane, do you have anything else? Okay. All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I could make a motion too. So,
I'm to adjourn.
okay, we have a motion by Carla and a second by Jason. Yeah, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Lon.